All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to open the October 28th meeting of the Wakefield Conservation Commission. First up is roll call. I know Frank will not be with us tonight and Teresa will not be with us tonight. Jimmy. Oh,
Jimmy, take yourself off of mute.
Thank you.
Ken.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
Silvana.
Here.
And we do have two associate members who were appointed earlier this week. We do have Paul Wendelgas with us and Julie Gigante Almeida also with us. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
All right. All right, first up. We have minutes to approve from the last meeting. Do we have anybody who's reviewed those? Would like to make a motion? Are there any corrections or comments?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Jimmy,
Yep.
Peter,
Yes.
Silvana,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jimmy. Jim, did you say yes?
I said yes.
Okay, I also approve the minutes. All right, first up, we have Farm Streets 109. We do not have a DEP file number yet. It's public hearing notice of intent for the construction of the addition to a dwelling and after the fact construction of an above ground pool and buffer to BVW. Is the applicant here for 109 Farm Street?
Yes, hi, I'll be presenting on behalf of the applicant. My name is Julia Hogeboom of LEC Environmental. In the audience tonight is also the homeowner, Jonathan Belia. So we'll be discussing our project at 109 Farm Street to construct an addition off the rear of an existing dwelling and for after the fact approval of a construction of an above ground swimming pool. So just to set the site for you, the property is located within the southeastern portion of Wakefield and is surrounded by single family dwellings off the east side of Farm Street. It contains a single family dwelling and a paved driveway. And there are a set of stairs that descend from the driveway into the backyard. The dwelling is surrounded by lawn and landscape plants, and an intermittent stream flows northerly along the rear property boundary. And there is an associated bordering vegetated wetland that occurs in the low-lying areas along that intermittent stream. Site topography generally descends westerly from Farm Street towards that rear property boundary and the intermittent stream. So the stream and the BVW place the 100-foot buffer zone onto the majority of the property. And so I don't know how the Wakefield Commission does it, but is it okay if I share the screen, the plan that I have, or if, I don't know if Elaine can, or.
Yeah, we did have it forwarded to us, but you can certainly share your screen. I just opened that up for you.
Okay, yeah, great. I will do that now. Let me just find it here. Okay. Can we all see that?
Got it.
Great. Okay. Oops, can you see it now?
Still see it, yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Like I said, there is an intermittent stream that flows along that rear property boundary. And also The dwelling is surrounded by lawn and landscape plants, but there is this vegetated upland area that's not lawn, located within the northwestern corner of the property. So the backyard does contain an above ground swimming pool surrounded by gravel and enclosed by 6-inch timber posts. The homeowners hired a contractor to construct the swimming pool in 2020, so last year. And one mulberry tree was cut to prevent berries from falling into the tree. So if you can see my cursor, can you all see my cursor?
No.
I don't see
Okay.
it.
I'm not sure how to make the cursor visible, to be honest, but if you look on the right hand of this plan, there is a red dot, and that is the approximate location of the mulberry tree that was cut.
Okay, we see that.
Yeah. So the pool was constructed after the contractor received a building permit from the town. However, the contractor wasn't made aware that he also needed to obtain a Conservation Commission permit as well. So he didn't know, and the homeowners trusted him to get all the right permits, and unfortunately he didn't. So this is for after the fact approval of that above ground swimming pool. So because of that, we went out to the site and delineated the bank to the intermittent stream and the BVW. And these flag locations are shown on this plot plan. The plot plan was prepared originally by Gloral Associates. They are a professional land surveyor. However, they don't use survey instruments to prepare their plans. They use field measurements. So I know that sometimes that's not sufficient for notice of intent, but I did check with, I had a conversation with Rebecca before submitting the NOI to see if the commission would be open to reviewing the plan as it stood. It's my understanding some additional information would have been helpful on the plan. And so what we did was LEC went out to the site. We verified the field measurements made by Gloral Associates and added some additional measurements to the plan ourselves. So any modifications you see on this plan made by LEC are in color. And so we did obtain permission from Gloral Associates to do that. And we also, while I was on site, I also demarcated that 25-foot buffer zone just to aid in some visual representation should there be some sort of sidewalk. So in addition to the above ground swimming pool approval, the homeowner is also proposing to construct a 170 square foot addition off the rear of the dwelling. So the addition will be elevated above the existing grade, and its foundation will be supported by 3 helical piling posts. And so those will be installed by using a track-driven machine to ensure minimal disturbance to the ground. So really no disturbance is proposed to the ground from that. And it is proposed within the outer 100-foot buffer zone, approximately 60 feet away from the BVW boundary. And in order to prevent any sedimentation into the BVW, we're proposing 12-inch compost filter tubes along the limit of work. But again, we're not really expecting any sedimentation to occur. Those are just as a precautionary measure. And lastly, to mitigate for that cut mulberry tree within the 25-foot buffer zone, we're proposing 3 native cultivar shrubs within the 25-foot no disturb zone in that landscape bed. And those will consist of 3 sweet pepperbush cultivars. So that's pretty much it. I'll turn it over to the chair and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Question on the pool. What type of filter is used in the pool?
Ooh, that's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that question. I do know that the homeowner is in the audience. Jonathan, if you feel comfortable answering that question,
Sure.
that would be great.
Sure. So I'm not sure of the specific type it is, but it's not one that's like a sand filter or anything like that. It has a, there's a housing, and it's inside of it is like basically it's a filter that attracts, that contains all the, not the weeds, but the
It's a
plants or anything
cartridge.
like that that might go in it.
So a cartridge type filter.
Yes.
It doesn't require back flushing.
No, it does not.
Okay, great. Is the pool heated at all?
No, it's not heated.
Okay.
And I will say that the last 2 years that I have emptied the pool, I have not gone anywhere near the stream. I have actually pushed it more towards the front of my house.
Okay, yeah, the concern there would be, if any superchlorinated water
Right.
were to make its way back to the stream.
Yep. No, I made sure to, I knew that was an issue, and I knew that was something we couldn't do. So I made sure to not go anywhere near that.
Okay, great.
Is the 33 by 21.5 the actual size of the pool?
No, so that is the whole area, including the gravel and the timber posts.
What size is the pool?
I can pull that up actually. Let's see.
So I can tell you that the water area is 16 by 24. And I believe the full dimensions with the deck all the way around is 30 by 22, I believe.
So that's an elevated deck around it?
Yes. But it's supported into the pool itself, so there is actually nothing in the ground, like no supports into the ground for the decking along the side, and in the front where the bigger part of the deck is. It doesn't go into the ground, it just rests on top of the ground, and that's the part closest to the house.
Okay. So how did you determine what you were going to plant to make up for the mulberry tree?
Yeah, so I reviewed the conservation tree removal policy, which requires 3 shrubs for every tree removed. So that's how we determined that.
And you're going to plant it within the 25-foot setback zone, correct?
Yes, within this landscape bed.
So down on that corner where your red dot is, if you go towards the corner of the property where the stream is, there's an area in there. There's an area in there of BVW, isn't there?
Are you talking about near flag 2?
I'd say between flag 1, 2, well, on the orange line. What's the orange line? The BVW?
Yep, the orange line is the BVW boundary.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think between flags 1, 2, and maybe 3, it would be, in my mind, there was a larger BVW area. You checked this out anyways, right? That line you put in was done.
Yes,
with
I delineated
vegetation
the
or soil?
wetland.
Pardon?
Was it-
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted you, but was your question if we delineated the wetland? If so, yes, LEC delineated the wetland.
Okay,
I was out there.
okay. Okay, that's all I have for questions. What are you gonna do for runoff on the roof, on the addition? Is it,
So no stormwater management is required. I made
Yeah,
sure
but-
to check that. So right now, there's no stormwater proposed. I suspect there's enough distance between the dwelling and the BVW for that stormwater to infiltrate before running into the stream.
I know it's not necessary, but we normally do require that, some type of system to catch the runoff.
Will there be
Okay,
gutters and downspouts?
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
what?
yes, there are downspouts in each corner of the house. So if you were to look at the plot plan where that 11.5 is right there, that's the current corner of the house, and there's a downspout right there. What we would have done, what we plan to do is just continue that downspout where the 8.5 is. Just like the rest of the house, each corner of the house has a downspout.
Okay. I don't have any questions.
Any other questions from the commission?
Has anyone gone down to take a look at the BVW on our end?
I've seen it on previous occasions.
Yeah, we actually had was it the next door property, Jim, that we walked?
I don't remember.
No, it was our property a few
Oh,
years
it was your
ago.
property?
Okay,
Because we have that, I don't know if you remember, or some of you who were there remember, we do have that pipe on our property that is, it's like I think it's like a 16-inch concrete pipe that's
yeah,
sticking out there where it comes above ground.
right. Daylight on your property goes back across and heads towards,
It heads under Farm Street.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I do remember the property.
How much, where does the lawn go relative to the BBW line?
Lawn goes up to the bank of the stream.
So it's, I'm sorry, so you're,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, finish your sentence. I'm sorry. didn't interrupt.
The lawn does go all the way up to the stream bank, except for near, I believe flags 3 and 4 are slightly more vegetated. It's slightly more vegetated there with wetland vegetation, but otherwise it's lawn up until the stream bank.
Right up until the stream bank.
Yep.
So that means there's lawn in the wetland then. The
That's
wetland is
correct.
being mowed. The wetland is being mowed.
That's correct.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, it seems to me that we have the pool, almost half the pool was built within the 25-foot buffer zone. I mean, looking at the aerial photos, that was a substantial tree. I mean, looking at the canopy that was providing, it was a significant amount of canopy that was being provided by that tree. If that's the east, that the western sun would, that would provide shade for, in the wet, for the afternoon sun. I guess what I'm saying is that, we have a situation here where, this is something that would have been very problematic for us to build a pool. I'm assuming, I'm not, and I'm just wondering what the right thing to do about this after the fact. That I'm asking, I'm positing the question is, shouldn't there be something that we do to, that there's been, I think that the buffer zone has been degraded, and that maybe some further affirmative steps besides 3 bushes are needed to compensate for that. And here we, found out, for example, that there's mowing going on in the wetland. I'd just like to discuss maybe there's something that would on a net, I'd like to think that we could do something that on a net basis would we could satisfy ourselves that on a net basis, other steps are taken so that on balance, that there hasn't overall been a degradation to the lot.
I think in retrospect, had we seen the plan before, we would have requested the pool to be rotated 90 degrees and go the opposite direction. Instead of heading back, it would be side to side.
And that would have, and also perhaps would have even addressed the tree. But I guess the point was, I guess my thought would be, perhaps it would be wise to have a site walk to look at things that, I think of it as almost like a redevelopment. What can there be in exchange so that we can feel satisfied that overall there hasn't been a degradation.
Yeah, maybe we could look at additional plantings or different type of plantings somewhere
Or-
to provide canopy, more canopy back there near
Yeah.
the
And what about things such as not mowing in the wetland? And allowing the wetland to be restored to a natural state.
So can I just address that real quick?
Of course.
Prior to buying the house, we bought the house about 8 years ago. That had always been mowed.
I understand
And-
that.
and-
No, I understand that. I mean, I'm not saying that you've done anything wrong. I'm just saying that, well, I'm not saying you've done anything wrong with the mowing. You have done something
Right.
wrong with the pool. And
Well-
I'm saying that there's that, and what I'm trying to do is to see what it is that's reasonable.
Right, and I understand that, but I don't want my backyard to turn into a swamp either. And not mowing it, I'm afraid that that's what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like I also have neighbors all around me who look into the yard, who can see into the yard there. And if it's weeds and, whatever, it's not going to look nice. And, I just don't understand,
And I'm sorry, this is Jessica, his wife. We did start processes 3 years ago with you guys to try and help resolve some of this because the stream has progressively gotten water, and it excessively floods whenever there's rain because the pipe is never cleaned out by the DPW or anyone. And so it's half filled with concrete and dirt and stuff like that. And to this day, we still do not have any solution for that. And the stream is making it worse over time because no one is helping us figure out how to resolve this. And it's been more than 3 years and we've had you guys come out.
and as far as the pool goes, like.
You've had
Linda mentioned,
us come out, conservation's come
Yeah,
out.
we've been
Yes,
out
they
there.
have.
Yeah, we were out there a few years ago, and Jimmy and I were definitely there.
There
I
was
don't remember
several
who else.
members there. They
Yeah.
might not be on the commission anymore,
Right.
but at least 6 or 7 people came out and looked at it. And just going back to the pool real quick, if we had known we needed to turn it, we would have. We were under the impression because we were issued a building permit by the building inspector that everything was all set. And we weren't involved in that process. And when I spoke with Rebecca about that, and she told me that the building inspector isn't required to talk to the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission is not required to talk to the building inspector. So, that makes it kind of tough to figure out solutions like this if you guys aren't speaking to each other.
Normally, the building inspector would actually say you need to talk to the Conservation Commission. I'm
Yeah,
not sure why that didn't happen.
Yeah, it was Jack Roberto, and as far as I know, I mean, I still have the physical building permit, with his signature on it. I know he's not there anymore, but
Yeah.
Does an application for a building permit ask for any kind of representation about whether any of this is in a buffer zone to wetlands or
I'm pretty sure we had to turn in a plot plan that should have that. I mean, you can see it's a stream right on there. This plot plan was turned in, showing where the proposed pool was going. before
I
it
have a
was put
quick
in.
question for the homeowner.
Sure.
I believe your wife said that the stream has been overflowing with the rain and everything.
Correct.
So how close is that overflow coming to the pool? Because that's my concern, that if you're worried about, your backyard becoming swampy, how close is that overflow coming to the pool? Why would a pool be put so close to that?
It doesn't touch
make
the
it to
pool.
the pool, but
But
it,
it probably comes within about 5 feet of where the planter box
right,
is,
but it
which
does
is
go up 10 feet into our neighbor's yard when it does
Right.
flood.
I mean, I know when we spoke the last time too, we had a sit down and we presented pictures and videos showing, you know, how bad it does flood to get back there, but it doesn't go up to the
Never
pool.
floods unless it's a heavy rain.
Yeah, and it doesn't even come up to the planter box. So which is a good, I don't know, I'd say a good 5 or 6, 7 feet from the actual pool itself, if not a little more.
The proposed addition, do you have is it foundation under that? Or how
No,
do
so the proposed addition is going to go up on stilts, as Julia mentioned. There'll be no foundation, no digging there whatsoever.
Well, you have to put footings in.
Yeah, they're going to be footings. That's what the pylons, I mean, sorry.
Well, okay, so.
So, but they're not going to be, from what I understand, they're driven into the ground. There's not even concrete or anything used in the process. I think as part of the packet that Julia handed in, our builder had written up basically what the process is like. I don't know if you guys have that or not, but
No, I don't have that.
okay.
Yep. So I described it in the NOI report. They are helical piling posts that are screwed into the ground.
Yeah,
They're installed using a machine and it's track driven. So there's very minimal disturbance to the ground when you use it. And they're installed deep enough into the ground until there's enough pressure
yeah.
to
know-
support the
I know exactly
foundation.
what they are. Okay. So it's a single story addition then, they open underneath, open to the air underneath and. okay.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Well, I would say, under the conditions that we have here, the best thing we could do is enhance the plantings a little bit. Keep them far enough away from the pool so it's not an issue for them as they grow. I'm not sure about what you're proposing was what? What were you proposing for a plant?
And where?
So we're proposing 3 native cultivars in the landscape bed, which is on this just above the pool.
Do you have a picture of what you're talking about?
Yes. It's included with the NOI report. Let me pull that up.
I see the existing landscape bed, but these plantings would be closer to the BVW.
No, they would be within that existing landscape bed is what we're proposing currently.
And that's the red box that's extended at the top of the pool. Yeah.
Correct, yep.
The picture's on page 24 of the PDF.
Can someone pull it up? I'm not doing too well trying to
I
find
think
it.
Julia's
Yeah.
getting that.
1 second here.
Oh, so that's the pool. Is that the actual pool?
Yes. Scroll down.
Oh, that's nice.
And this is the landscape bed as well as the pool.
So that's where you want to provide the landscaping?
That's what we have proposed right now.
Well, that's really not, so how far away from the BVW are you?
So that is within the 25 foot. It is about, let's see. It's about 5 feet from the BVW.
So maybe you can go through the benefits of that versus, because I don't know how that replaces the tree. As far as the value of the tree, what it's providing for this area. I don't think you can do that in a planting box.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
probably should be some enhanced plantings towards the BVW area.
Yeah, so we were going off of the tree removal policy on the website. It requires 3 replacement shrubs off of the 1 removed tree. So we were using that as our guideline. But it certainly, if the commission would like something closer to the BVW, I can pull up the plan again, but perhaps those 3 shrubs could instead go in the lawn area along the stream bank.
So how does that planting bed assist in the value of the BVW? I mean, I don't get the connection there. I would say that you should put a tree in there closer to the BVW because it's going to suck up water better than those shrubs or little plants you're talking about. I mean, is what's most important, is that whatever you put in there is going to enhance the BVW. And I don't think that does it.
But would 3 replacement shrubs rather than 1 sapling tree enhance the BVW if we put them within the BVW area?
Well, how big do they get?
The cultivars can get up to 5 feet on center.
Okay, do you think that's the most valuable plant that you could put for the application that we're showing here? If you're trying to provide shading in the brook, or if you're trying to, what would you be trying to do to enhance the brook? What would you be trying to enhance?
So they are
make that a better-
native cultivars. They still provide habitat for native pollinators.
All right, that's good.
Yeah, so
I would say, I would say that it really just needs to be closer to the BVW. I would try to keep, I think that would help to stop the BVW from traveling a little closer to the pool, because if you take away water, or if you get enough, if you get enough water out of the area, the plants are not going to go uphill.
Hey, Julia, can you bring up the plot plan again real quick?
sure, yeah. Give me 1 second.
So another area that Julia and I were talking about, but I just wanted to bring up the plan so you get an idea where it is. Between the 2 flags, 6 and 7, when you see it on the plot plan, there is an area where that it dips down, and it's basically a strip, and there are basically 2 trees between 6 and 7. So essentially between the orange line and the blue line, there's an area there, but it dips down. We would be willing to plant there as well. And that gets, when it floods, it gets a lot of water there.
Okay.
So we'd move out of the planter box, and, we were thinking the planter box just because it was there, and the actual bottom of the planter box does touch the actual ground there. So we thought maybe that might be someplace where we could put it, since we already had kind of the box there,
But it looks like it's somewhat removed from even the BVW, I mean, it doesn't seem like a.
Right. So the BVW is the orange line,
I
right?
just think there's a better option. I like your other idea of going further along the stream, as long as we.
Can I just ask one question though? Sorry, I'm still okay with doing it between there, but the box is closer than the tree was to the BVW.
Well, that's all right.
Okay, but okay.
I know, but I don't think it's.
But the tree, that was a substantial tree. I mean, that tree was, I looked at the aerials. That was a big tree that provided a lot of shade. So in fairness, I think that
Okay. No, that's fine. Like I said, I don't have a problem. We don't have a problem putting the bushes in between, 6 and 7 there, and even over near, flag 2 over that way in the corner over there. Maybe we could put 1 or 2 over there, and then maybe put 3 or 4 between 6 and 7. Would that be enough for you guys?
I think those are good locations.
It's getting to what I was concerned about, is trying to do some real overall improvements that we can leave satisfied that the step back is matched by a step forward. And I just feel like that's you can understand that as a commission, that's what we're not looking for some sort of big net improvement, and we're certainly not looking to penalize, but we just want a step forward that we can reasonably feel corresponds to the step backward.
Right, so our, 5, 6 shrubs, is that enough in your opinion? And real quick too, I apologize, when we took down the tree, I wasn't aware of all of this, so I wasn't aware that we needed to ask for permission or anything like that,
Yeah,
so.
we're
That's
not
also my
ascribing,
fault.
we're not ascribing bad motives here. We're
Yep.
not, this isn't about that. This is just trying to, the situation is what it is, and,
Mhm.
and we're gonna go in and if we are reasonable and work together, my hope is that there's something that doesn't, that's satisfactory on all fronts,
Yep.
that accomplishes what we want to accomplish. And here, when we get into the details, maybe there's other members of the commission that sort of have a better qualitatively, and there, right, since I haven't seen I don't recall if I went there, I just don't remember. I don't remember. I just don't remember the property, but I'm wondering, I am wondering whether there's some that whether another site visit is warranted for this specific purpose. Or
Okay.
Well, there's no file number at this point, so we wouldn't be able to close the hearing no matter what.
Um,
So I mean, it would be time to, visit if somebody wanted to.
I mean, do you guys have if other members of the commission feel like they can sort of envision what this should look like, and that this would, we can feel that this really does make a material, that it really is a step, a step forward that offsets a step backward, then that's fine. But I just can't, it's hard for me to look at this schematic and make that conclusion. That's all.
Julia, I believe in your paperwork, you had some pictures of that area. Would that be helpful to show those?
Of the cut tree or?
No, but
oh,
with
the
the
wetland
corner,
Stream is. in
yeah,
that
the
area. I
corner
just-
and everything over there.
Just
We're
for
like,
those
Sure.
that haven't been to the site
right,
already.
we're
if
like
they
flag.
Yeah, let me pull those up.
Well, I just noticed there is somebody with their hand raised from the public. We'll open it up for public questions in a few minutes. But I just
Right.
noticed your hand raised, Melissa.
So that's down in the corner by flags 1, 2, and 3 on the plot plan.
Yeah,
So that looks pretty good there.
yeah. There's also another view too I can pull up.
Yeah, I definitely remember this property.
You guys have better memories than I do.
I remember it too. I think we should be doing whatever it takes to, oh, is that the tree you took down with?
No, so this is the stream along the rear property boundary. You can see the pool in the background of this
Oh, yeah.
photo to the right.
Yeah,
The tree was taken down on the other side of the pool.
Other side, right.
Right. So this
Okay.
is the area that I was talking about between 6 and 7 that we would be okay with planting on. Probably it'd be closer to the far tree instead of the one right here in the corner.
And these,
Down in this little area, really close to the opening of the stream right there.
and these trees still exist?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so they're providing some shade for sure.
well, it's providing shade and also what might be beneficial for this situation, because they have a water problem with the stream, is plants that absorb a lot of water. So if there's something that's in there that can do that, that's what we should be shooting for, I would think. Julie, you'd know better than I would what would satisfy that requirement. What would be the best plants that we could put up there to help alleviate their water problem?
For plants, yeah, I mean, we can certainly put a wetland shrubs in here, sweet pepper bush. They are a wetland plant that
Yeah,
are water loving, so those would
Yeah.
certainly help.
okay. And how do they compare to a tree? I know a tree can suck up a lot of water.
A tree certainly can. We just, in this area, we wouldn't want to plant a tree because there's just not enough room for it to thrive. we would have to find a more suitable place for it. But again, three shrubs versus one tree, maybe we could find 3 water loving shrubs that
Yeah.
would provide some shade for the stream.
Right, like Julia, like we said, we do the 3 initial shrubs that we proposed, and then we would be fine with doing 3 more shrubs to replace the tree.
Yeah.
So 6 shrubs total.
So,
I mean, I think that's a good, I think that's a great, way to approach it. I don't know.
Yeah, these trees are holding a lot of water right now, these 2. But anything added will just help the situation for you.
So perhaps we propose 6 replacement shrubs within the BVW, perhaps as a condition. We can't close the public hearing tonight.
Well,
because we don't
let's
have
talk
the-
to Elaine
NOA
first.
number.
Is Elaine here? Let's get her opinion on this. Is she there, Bob?
Yes.
he's on mute right now.
Okay.
Elaine,
Hello?
Okay, here I am. Okay,
Elaine, have
so
you
I
been
heard all of
following this? You've been following this, right?
I have.
So what do you think of that suggestion? Do you have any comments that you'd like to add?
Well, I think 6 bushes would be good. If you're looking at way over in the corner and you're looking for a tree, you might be looking at a willow tree. If that's
Yeah.
possible, it would grow to a larger height. It would absorb an awful lot of water. It's water loving. And if you are not too concerned about another large tree in that corner of the yard, a willow might be the way to go, and to put in a willow as opposed to a 6 small bushes, or a combination, 3 in a willow, or it doesn't have to be a large weeping willow, but another variety of willow is also good.
Okay, how does that sound? Julia?
I believe the homeowners would prefer 6 shrubs over a sapling willow. Jonathan, do you have any input on that?
Sorry, give me 1 second. My wife and I are just kind of looking at pictures of the willows right now.
So willows can be very nice landscape plants as well.
So what if a 3 to 6 foot willow, would that be okay? So three shrubs down, in this picture here, down by those trees, and then the willow up in the corner there.
Yeah,
Would that be like a 3 to 6
Like
foot tall
the-
willow? Is that
The
okay?
dwarf weeping willow tree, would something like that work?
Well, I tell you, a weeping, if you want, it seems to me you have a desire to have a somewhat neat and orderly looking backyard.
Yes.
So if you put in a weeping willow tree, it will get very, very large. I think what you may want to take a look at is another variety of willow.
Okay,
The sort of tree that becomes, let's say, a pussy willow in the springtime. They only get to be about 15 feet high. So I think maybe you want to take a look at some other options other than a big weeping willow.
We were thinking about like a dwarf, one that only gets to about a max 6 feet.
Well, if they have dwarfs, I didn't even know they had them, but if
Yeah,
that's what you're looking
My
for,
wife found one online,
okay.
so just want
But
to
a
make sure
will-
the height is okay with you guys,
does that variety work well in this location?
that I don't know.
Julia, that's your expertise.
So yeah, we will have to review these plants and make sure they are wetland plants, as long as the commission is okay with a 6 foot high native cultivar. We could provide the exact species to the commission after the public hearing. We certainly want to review all the options and choose one that is best suited for the wetland. Looks like it's sunny in that area, something that's gonna do well, so.
Elaine, are there any other smaller trees that would fit the bill as options?
Well, there's speckled alder, which gets to be maybe 15 feet high, which is also water loving. There are, since we're not closing the hearing tonight, there are any number of options, any of which would do well. And so what you really would need to do is take a look at what the homeowner's looking for. I think you want one that will sort of maximize as much height as you can get to maximize your shade and still be acceptable to the homeowner. And I think at this point, you need to go over your options and pick one.
Yep. So as long as the 3 shrubs and a sapling, potentially a willow, in that corner of the property, if that's sufficient, we'll go with that and let the commission know the exact species. Would the commission like to know the exact species tonight? Or is that something that we can provide at the next public hearing? And close the hearing at the next public hearing?
It could be provided at the next hearing because obviously
Yeah.
we can't close anyways.
Right. Okay.
I think as long as we agree on on the way we're going forward, you should be
Right.
fine. You know, I think that,
Should we have them shown on the plan, on the proposed plan?
Yeah, definitely.
yes, absolutely, yes.
Sure, we can add those.
And I had something else that I was talking about with Rebecca this afternoon with regards to the location of the pool. So this is an above ground pool. So eventually it's going to come down. We talked about a condition in the order that says this is an after construction filing, and the pool has been constructed in the 25-foot no disturb zone. The location is not grandfathered, and any new pool location must be located outside the 25-foot no disturb zone. This condition shall remain in perpetuity and noted in the certificate of compliance. So whoever buys this, so if the homeowner takes it down, it comes down as children get older. Above ground pools do tend to come down. And if there is a new buyer, then it's right there in the chain of title, so that it stays where it is for as long as it is. And if anybody wants a new pool at a future date, they can't assume that this location is fine.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Sure, we have no problem with that at all.
Yeah, I mean, really, you just have to rotate it 90 degrees and you potentially be compliant.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right.
Any other questions from the commission before I open it up to the public? Okay, any questions or comments from the public?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Is this
Hi, my
Melissa?
name. So yes, my name is Melissa Descoli. I live in that greenhouse that's in that picture
Okay,
that's shown on the screen. So I'm sort of diagonally behind Jonathan and his wife.
okay,
I've lived in this house for 30 years, and I can 100% assure you that the stream has only gotten progressively worse as the town of Wakefield has approved one development after another, both across the street from me up in the hills and further up Old Nahant Road, Pheasant Wood, all up in that area by Castle Clare. And the town is piping the water behind our houses. That is what that pipe is that comes above ground in Jonathan's property. And it goes behind his property, behind my property above ground. And then it gets repiped in halfway across my other neighbor's yard. And in 30 plus years, nobody has ever come to clean it. So the town is propagating and making this runoff, quite honestly, 100% worse. And I'm PO'd that you guys are calling it a wetland, because in fact, what it actually is just land that is very wet and boggy, because the town is directing all of this runoff from everywhere else into our backyards. And let me tell you, sometimes it floods 30 feet up into my yard. 30 feet, that's ridiculous.
Mm.
That's not a stream. Sometimes over the years, I've literally had white caps out there because it's like a river running across the back of those properties.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know of any other place in town that has it like this. It's kind of ridiculous. And in all honesty, where we seem to be arguing about a tree, and a tree isn't going to make any difference here. Not one, not at all will one tree make any difference.
Was there a time where this stream or pipe was not here in your 30 years?
Nope, that pipe, it's always been open, but it has just gotten progressively worse as far as the flooding is concerned. And in fact, across the street from me, the town has piped there's a brook that comes across the street from me on Old Nahant Road, and the town has piped it underneath my property, like on the dividing line between my property and the next property over. And then it meets up with this stream in the back of my property. It's like we just keep dumping all the water down there, and we're at the low point and it just floods constantly. We would need to plant a forest back there. I've even had the DPW down and they've asked, why isn't it piped? And I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you guys finish putting your pipe in?
Okay.
But I mean, I can honestly tell you that, you know, the water issue is no better or worse since the applicant took down one tree and put his pool in.
Well, I mean, the tree does have a certain amount of,
It's just been a
water
big
uptake.
problem getting worse.
yeah, there's more water, there's more development around town. There's more developments that are not jurisdictional to us. that
They
have
should
been-
have been. I know for a fact that the Concom was involved in a lot of these developments over the years. And the constant reply is, oh, we'll create drainage. It will drain. We won't have 100-year storm. And yet we seem to be having 100-year storms every other week lately. And that pipe is directing all of that water into our backyards. And yet you guys are asking the Belias what they're gonna do for roof runoff. And it's like, we got much bigger problems than that. I mean, the whole back corner of my yard, I can barely grow grass, any kind of grass. I can't even grow a weed.
So we're looking
It's
at the
just mud.
contributing factors on this property that would potentially make the case worse. And that's why we asked about roof runoff. That's why we're talking about tree removal. Those are all incremental impacts to the amount of water in the area. And you have a cumulative effect around town when a tree is taken down or roof runoff is not properly handled. So
That may
it's a
be
death
so,
by a
but I guess
thousand
what I'm
cuts.
asking you, Mr. Romano, is to pay heed to this when all other future development, and I'm talking major development, houses are going in up the street, uphill from us. When they start cutting in a big road to put the vocational school in, or when they talk about where they're going to put the new high school, take heed of that, because we're the ones that are paying the penalties of all this development. You guys call it a stream, I call it town-owned runoff.
Okay.
So.
I guess. Are we moving on? Is that,
Are there any other comments from the public? All right, so obviously we have to continue. There is no file number. We will continue to the next meeting, which is November 18th. We'll have a little bit more ideas of what the planting plan will look like. We may have a file number by then. And then we'll take it from there.
Sounds
So-
good. Thank you.
I'm
All
sorry,
right, thank you.
can I just ask one quick question?
Sure.
Why wouldn't we have a file number by then? I'm not up to on the how the process works, so I'm just curious.
They
So-
assign the number. We don't.
Right,
really-
DEP
we
assigns the
can't
number.
really- we have no
Oh, so it's based on the
control.
state?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gotcha, okay, sorry.
They're gonna review this and they may or may not make comments and then they will issue the file number.
Gotcha, okay. I just wasn't aware of what the process was.
Yeah,
so
we
I was
wish,
just curious.
we wish we could get them faster.
Gotcha.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, appreciate it.
all right, thank you. Good night.
Night.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's see, next up is actually, is Lake Street continued? It is. So 313607 Lake Street is continued. And that would give us a few minutes before the next hearing at 8 o'clock.
Well, Camp Curtis is continued as well,
Okay, that's it. That was scheduled at 8:30.
just in case there's anyone here early.
Okay. Also, wait a minute, is Quannapowitt Parkway continued, Judy? It says on the agenda it is.
I don't know.
No,
Oh,
it just
wait, no.
means the continued
Oh, it's
public
continued
hearing.
tonight. Okay, so all right, so is Lake Street still on then?
No. Lake
Alright,
Street being postponed, 200 Quannapowitt is a continued public hearing.
All right, so the agenda doesn't reflect that.
It does.
Ah.
It's a public hearing and then in parentheses continued.
For Lake Street.
Oh, for Lake Street, it says
Yeah.
postponed until November 18th.
All right, I must
Says
not
that
have the
for
most
Camp
recent
Wakefield.
agenda then.
Oh,
Okay. All right, so Lake Street is postponed. Quannapowitt Parkway will be continued tonight. And Camp Curtis Guild scheduled for 8:30 is also postponed.
no. 200 Quannapowitt is on. This is
I
just.
just said that. Right.
Oh,
Lake
I'm
Street-
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah, Lake Street is postponed. Camp Curtis Guild is postponed. And we have about 2 minutes before we can do anything with Quannapowitt Parkway.
Okay. All right, do you want to do the transmission line request for certificate of compliance?
Sure.
Okay, so this was simply soil borings. And they're finished. And they sent in photographs. And from the photographs, it appears that everything has grown back, which is not surprising because they were just soil borings. So it seems that a certificate of compliance would be warranted.
Okay, would somebody like to make that motion?
I will.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jimmy,
Yes,
Peter,
Yes.
Silvana,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes,
and I also vote yes to issue that certificate of compliance. All right, we do have 8 o'clock now. Elaine, you ready for us to move on?
I am.
Okay, great. All right, so 8 o'clock, we do have DEP 313608. That's 200 to 400 Quannapowitt Parkway. Public hearing continued, notice of intent for the construction of 3 buildings. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Doc,
Fine.
yep. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Matt. Matt, were you gonna go? This is Scott.
He
Just
seems to
saying
be.
good evening.
Okay, yeah, so Scott Goddard's here from Goddard Consulting. Matt is here for the applicant, and we also have Nicholas here as representing the design engineer. So since the last meeting,
Hey,
the,
Scott,
Yes.
let me interrupt you for 1 second. So for the record, Ken has recused himself from this hearing, and our 2 associate members can comment when the comments are open up to the public. And sorry, go ahead, Scott.
no, that's fine, that's fine. So just as a recap, myself and Mitch Mislanka from my office were present at the last meeting, and the primary focus was, so we sort of continued with regulatory compliance discussion, a lot of talk about riverfront area, redevelopment, new condition standards. We talked about bordering vegetated wetlands, the possibility for improvements of existing conditions due to stormwater. And then there was some remaining questions that lingered from that meeting. A couple of things that came out of it from the resource area angle was, one, was there opportunity for mitigation of any direct impacts from existing stormwater infrastructure and opportunities to incorporate that into this project, or even maybe before this project advances. The second significant question that came out of it was, how would this project look if it was being reviewed under new development standards versus the redevelopment standards? There were a number of other smaller topics that came out of it, like, is there evidence we can know that the stream goes in one direction versus the other, and these kind of topics. So a submittal was submitted to the commission through the engineer's office at Allen & Major. It incorporated comments both from Goddard Consulting and Allen & Major. The commission has those responses in their possession. I am happy to discuss portions or all of that response as it pertains to wetland resource areas, as the commission would deem it to be helpful. And then my understanding of the intent of this meeting, based on prior discussions and sort of the structure of moving forward, is that the focus tonight would really be stormwater design. And therefore, Nicholas would be the primary presenter to go through the wet basins design, the other stormwater management infrastructure throughout the site. So with that as an intro, I guess I would just put it back to the commission quickly to see what you might like to hear from me first before it gets turned over to Nicholas to talk about the stormwater. Would you like me to go over some of those responses to last time's questions, or would you like to jump into the stormwater?
Why don't we clean up the comments that you gave, the responses you gave to our questions?
Okay. So you want me to kind of walk through the comment letter? Is that what you'd like to
I
see?
think,
Yeah, please.
yeah, you
Okay,
got it
good.
pretty well laid out.
Perfect. So would you like me to share my screen? Would that be appropriate?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Is that all visible by all?
It is.
Perfect. And Nicholas, at any time, if you want to jump in, feel free to. So I'll just sort of scan down the letter that was submitted October 20th, Allen & Major Associates. Initially, we were recognizing that BSC Group will be doing a peer review and that we look forward to receiving further design comments from BSC. The next comment was about elevations shown on the site plans and how that relates to the flow of the water. So there are some perhaps elevation problems with pipes and inlets that might exist out there where water has to get to a certain elevation before it can tip in one direction or the other. But there's no question, based on stream stats, which I included attached here, this is a stream stats analysis, that it's incontrovertible that the watershed is all located to the north and west of the stream. And if we take this blue arrow as our control point, which is the upper end or the inlet to the lake.
Mhm.
This yellow area is all the contributing watershed. And these blue lines here, here, here are the stream channels that all converge and flow to the south and west into the lake. So with the lake definitely receives water as opposed to contributes water to the stream channel. So I'm confident in the direction of the flow with that 3 plus or minus square foot watershed.
Okay, but is there, excuse me, is there is there another outlet to that area, that 3.5 square mile area? There isn't a channel that connects back up to the Saugus River?
So there's a stream that originates right here that flows to the north and east. There's a stream that originates here close to Reading Center and flows directly east. Another stream that originates up here and flows almost directly south. The 3 streams converge in this location, flow underneath Route 95 and into the lake. I don't know of another pattern of water flow that comes through our site or contributes in or out of this watershed. But again, this is only a stream stats analysis. It's not field vetted. But as you hit these other channels over here in Reading, those are all, you know, moving in different directions, heading off in this way. These streams are heading off in this direction. So this is what's our contributing area. Is there a particular stream that you're asking about that I'm not seeing on here?
Well, I have a question. I think Jimmy has a different question, but looking at the outflow from the lake to the northeast of the, yeah, right there. Now, just above that, it looks like there's another stream converging. Where is that one coming from? It almost looks like those streams that converge are running into that one potentially.
They're running across in the blue.
Yeah.
Back down to where he's saying.
This line right here.
It almost seems like there's more maybe flow through there than there is towards the lake.
It doesn't give you a direction of flow on the schematic type drawing.
I didn't field check this, but does anybody know, is there a pipe that goes underneath 95 right in this location? Or is that straight cut through?
I have no idea.
I mean, it's so straight that it looks like it's probably a pipe, but it's hard to tell.
Because the presumption that StreamStats is taking is that this is a break here, right? And
Right.
that this channel is flowing like this and converging, and that this one that is flowing this way.
Yeah,
That's
but how
the-
do you know
I'm sorry.
that? How can you tell that from, I mean, if you shoot the elevations out there, it's saying something different.
So that could be field checked by, you know, walking the whole watershed and making notes about directions of flow here and over here. But I'm not sure that it's.
What would the
pertinent.
effect be if you were wrong? Do you know, is there any effect at all to worry about?
All this is telling us that we need to know is that the water from this 3 square mile watershed,
Right.
starting and encompassing all of downtown Reading, is flowing toward our site. And you can visibly see the water moving through our site into the
Well,
lake.
I'll
You
tell
know,
you, I was out there last night and I was out there this morning, and there's no water going underneath the Quantipower Parkway. There is no flow in that thing you're calling a stream. There is nothing out there.
You're saying you observed the water to
I
be
have
more
observed
stagnant.
it, yes, and it is stagnant. It's just resting there. So there's something wrong with this that we don't fully understand. And I don't have the answers. I'm just asking the question because I don't know what the answer is.
No, it's a fair question, and I didn't evaluate the condition of the connection at Quantipower Parkway to see if there's some kind of obstruction or other thing. I do know that there's some elevation concerns where water would stagnate prior to it getting to its discharge point. But I don't see anything out there based on my observations that would make me think that water is flowing from the lake into the site or flowing.
I don't think it's, I think that that area across Quantico Parkway is like a roadblock. I think it's acting more like a wetland than a stream.
And we are declaring it a stream only because that's the demarcation status on the USGS map, and therefore the presumptions of riverfront
Okay,
apply
but
to it.
you have physical evidence that you can go out there and look at it and see there's no flow. I mean, there's a reason for that, and someone should tell us what the reason is.
So
Yeah, that's gotta
And
be
I don't like stream
documented.
stats anyways. I don't.
oh,
It can
listen,
change-
it-
it
I
changes very
understand.
easily.
Effectively, it's right. It's a crude analysis to show you that this 3 square miles of water has to be going somewhere.
Yeah, and I think it's probably going down the Saugus River from some other connection.
So maybe it's short circuiting and heading towards where I was talking about.
Are you thinking that the water from here is flowing down here, going underneath 95 at this
No,
location?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm saying, and it doesn't sound like you've investigated it enough to be able to tell me.
Well,
Or you
sorry,
don't
this
even know
is,
if there's any real effect. I mean, this may all be for nothing, or maybe it's going to affect your design. I don't know.
Nicholas, do you have any other information on this?
yeah, so this is Nick with Allen and Major Associates. Scott, I mean, I've visibly seen the pipe coming underneath 95,
Right.
just west of our property.
Right.
You've seen that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it comes right out, right to where that, where you've delineated the top of bank for the stream that's going through
Correct.
there.
Correct.
And I don't recall seeing water coming out of it. I'm sure there is. Have you seen water flowing out of that pipe?
In
the field?
My recollection is that it had water at the time of viewing, yes.
All right.
But I've never investigated this location right here.
I haven't either. That's
if
way
there's-
beyond our scope.
It's very far away, but to see if there's any kind of a pipe underneath 95 at that location, I just don't know.
So to elaborate on your question of why you're not seeing water from that stream enter the lake, like Scott said, the culvert that passes below the parkway, it is pitched backwards back towards our site. So the stream and the wetlands within our property, the water has to have a chance to build up to a certain elevation before it starts overflowing into the lake. So when you were out there and witnessing the recent storm, there may just not have been enough water yet built up to get into the lake, or it may have been passing underneath any sort of obstruction, whether it's leaves and branches, it might have been passing below that and not visible. But like Scott said,
well,
I haven't, at least recently, evaluated the condition of that outfall at the lake edge from that culvert.
I think we can, take a bit of a closer look at that connection pipe and maybe even just take a quick peek at this, just to put this question to bed. It sounds like there's inquiries here that.
I was looking at old maps, okay, of this area, and it seems to me there's another, like Bob was pointing out, there's another path that ties right into the Saugus River. So, I mean, if that was the outfall, that may be the outfall for this 3.5 acres. It may not be Quantico Parkway, and maybe it is. And you got 2.5 feet ahead between the 95 pipe and Quantico Parkway pipe. I mean, there's a lot of head there, should flow.
And if we can just focus really quickly, just back on the scope of our work.
No, this is important. I just, it's something I want an answer on. I'm not gonna let go until we get an answer.
Okay, I just wanted to put in there that everything from our development sheet flows into that stream, regardless if the 9 acres from Reading goes there or not. And that's where it's going to be going under proposed conditions.
but if it ends up flowing the other way, it might have an effect on your design.
So I think I'd like to keep moving forward. I've noted that there's an ongoing question that's important to be answered here. And Nick and I will put our heads together and a little bit further field investigation that's going to be substantially, off-site. But I'll also investigate that connection point between the stream and the lake to the better satisfaction of the commission.
Maybe there need to be some more spot grades, or is the stream just full, silted up, or?
Well, I think we have a lot of spot grades, right, Nick? I mean, it's not a matter of more survey work that's needed as far as I'm understanding. Is that correct, Nick?
Yeah, no, I think we have all the information we need within our property,
Okay.
including the inverts of that culvert going into the lake, which again, it is sloped backwards.
Which is causing the stagnation of the water and the appearance of no flow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not an appearance, it would be no flow.
Exactly, right, yeah. So if we can move forward from that topic, the next issue was evaluating the wetlands and or buffer areas for potential mitigating improvements for the stormwater impacts. These pictures we looked at last time, these are these concrete swales. So if you dig in the dirt right through here, you go through the built up sediment that's now growing vegetation on it, and you have the underlying concrete swales. What we found in investigating the surrounding wetlands in here is that there's no concentrated buildup of silt directly as a result of these swales. Now, has silt entered these wetlands and the lake through these swales? For sure, but it's so dispersed over so many years, there's not something there that's able to be removed or mitigated, as it were. But what we can do is take care of deferred maintenance of the swales, as all stormwater features should be. These swales should be regularly cleaned. And that's exactly what we propose to do, is to take these, decades-long swales. There's one there. I think there's another picture right here. Yeah, there's another one here. And go through and clean out these swales so that we don't have transportation of the sediment that's within these swales during storm events. It's probably reasonable as well to continue with normal sweeping procedures on site.
When you say you're gonna clean out the swales, is there asphalt on the bottom of the swales?
Yes.
Okay, so would you be repairing that? Would you be taking that out and making a new swale?
No, this is a very, very temporary measure, because once the construction of this project begins, all of these features go away.
Oh, this is just temporary for during construction.
This is just temporary for in the meantime.
Right, to
Further-
alleviate the issues that we're currently seeing.
Exactly. So it's just some delayed maintenance of the existing conditions. But
Yeah.
once the new infrastructure that Nick's going to talk about tonight for stormwater goes into effect, everything out there becomes defunct. It's getting a complete overhaul to meet current regulatory standards.
Okay.
Number 4 talks about regulatory compliance for new development standards in the riverfront area. I'm going to save that till last because that's at the very bottom. Number 5 was showing the test pit locations and their elevations on the site plans. That'll be included in subsequent plans. That's a fairly minor add-on, but we'll save that till we have a new plan submission set. So
when would that be? Is that when your plans are finally all approved? You're gonna supply that information?
I can provide some color on that,
go ahead.
if I may.
Yes.
Candidly, we have some minor plan revisions that are in the works that largely do not impact our Concom submission, but that are still in the works or a ZBA submission. So I think we'd be expecting to submit a minor modification in the next few weeks, at which point we'll include that in that plan set.
Okay, so you're just waiting to get all your revisions together and gonna put it on one plan.
That's exactly right, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay, so that we'll see that information before we get to any point that we're finished with this.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if through the BSC peer review, we come up with some other modifications needed to the site plan, and then there's a new set submitted, that
Yeah.
set will include that data as well as the point number 6 here, which is the font size of the elevation request. Something else on the next plan set revision that will be detailed. Same with the cross section of the wet basins.
Okay.
So there's an attached response to this as well that includes some further discussion of wet basins. I think we'll let that be part of the presentation tonight with Nick. There was a question about the soil suitability assessment for on-site sewage disposal forms, and this is simply just a standard form. So that is not necessarily indicating that there's a sewage disposal system being proposed, because there is not, but it's a standard form used by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts DEP to log soil conditions, high groundwater conditions.
Okay, but
So-
that form also has a signature page for someone, whoever is providing that information. I know the last page of that form was to have someone sign it to say that they filled out the form.
And
Correct.
are you saying that
You
the
look on
form was
Form 11.
so the form was unsigned? Is that what the comment is?
No, the if you look at the last page on Form 11 is a signature page saying that you're attesting that you've done this correctly. I don't know if you've seen that page, but there should be someone's name on it to say that they've done the work.
And so
I haven't seen
your
it.
comment is that there was no name listed? Is that the comment?
No, yeah, there's the form, you sent us the other pages, but you didn't send us the last page.
Yeah, I can comment on that. I don't think that was provided by Haley and Aldrich. Matt, if maybe we just circle back with them, get that signed form, and we can attach it to these soil logs.
Okay.
Okay. And then, so we attached the stream stats analysis, and then there was a regulatory compliance report. Now, the discussion we had during the riverfront analysis was that this project is really a textbook redevelopment project. Nearly the entirety, or shall I say the entirety of this riverfront is previously developed, with a significant portion of it being degraded. Some portions of it are previously developed that are non-degraded. Those are the landscape islands and the lawn area up against the riverfront area. So this really is a redevelopment project under 310 CMR 1058.5. Evaluating this project under new development standards is not only inappropriate, but it's clunky, because it's hard to apply new development standards to something that you're redeveloping. The analysis doesn't quite line up correctly. It's not how it's done. Under the new redevelopment standards, we're to improve existing conditions, right? For new development standards, there's no standard to improve existing conditions, right? We're allowed to alter existing conditions up to 10%, and with no adverse impacts presumed. We're allowed to add stormwater management features within the riverfront area and not count those against our percentages. But then what do you do with the existing infrastructure that you have that's being redeveloped? It doesn't really fit into the standards. Nevertheless, at the request of the commission, for your records, we included a analysis of the new development standards. So we can walk through this in as little or as much detail as you would like. I think maybe I'll just highlight a couple items in here. This area talks about that we're taking 11.53% of the riverfront area we're returning it to pervious surfaces that are currently impervious. So instead of further impacting riverfront area, we're actually improving it by in the other direction, which is a very opposite of new development kind of a process. We talk about protection of other resource areas, which we have some consideration to bordering land subject to flooding. We have no rare species. We talk about economic alternatives and how to do an alternatives analysis. Now, again, for redevelopment, there's no standard for an alternatives analysis because the standard is you have to make the site better. When you do a new development process, you're looking at which alternative is proposed that is equivalently, economically equivalent, that meets the standard of no adverse impact. No adverse impact is the whole 10% deal. So the alternatives that we talked about was keeping the project just the way it is. That project is a very viable alternative for the site. In fact, before this development was proposed, there was consideration for reuse of that current building. That would not have any stormwater upgrades. It would not remove any of that pervious surfaces within the riverfront area. All those degradations that are currently existing within the riverfront area would stay. And that meets all the laws for that current use to stay. So our proposed activity is actually far superior to that. The second alternative would be that we could take this whole development and we could shift it all closer to the river and still meet the standards for not further degrading the riverfront area. That 11.53% of riverfront area that we're removing the asphalt in, we wouldn't have to do that. We could keep it as it is, or potentially if we try to apply new development standards, we could increase that by even another 10%. So that standard, though it could meet the regulations, doesn't have less adverse impact area to the riverfront area than our current proposal. So we have what we believe is a very balanced approach. Our alternative, our current proposal, we see it as a project that improves the riverfront area ecologically, stormwater, setbacks, degraded surfaces within riverfront area, all being improved to the better of the river. That's outlined in here. Standard D is the no significant adverse impact. And there's less than 10% of areas that are currently lawn that would then become not lawn. If you look at them in there as if everything currently was staying there, that's not an appropriate way to do it, but that's the only way to evaluate a new construction standard for a project like this. And we do keep that at less than 10%. It's at 9.6%. So it meets that standard if we apply it in that sense. We also are required to do stormwater management in accordance with the policy. That's going to be the purpose of the balance of tonight's meeting, is to talk about how, in fact, this property is now going to be subject to current stormwater management standards. So then we also have the ability to not count the area of the stormwater against the 10% or the alterations within riverfront area. That's allowable by new development standards. That's right here. The calculation shall exclude the areas used for structural stormwater management. We looked at ways on which, can that be pulled back further? And Nick's going to be able to talk about that tonight, about why the stormwater is proposed to stay where it is and why it can't be pulled further back. But I think that will be a useful topic to talk about after Nick gives his presentation this evening. The preservation of the capacity for wildlife habitat. The stormwater management feature is going to act as a wildlife habitat corridor and enhance the current absence of a wildlife habitat corridor, because it's basically just that lawn area. So we're going to be improving that area as well. Your 25-foot zone is going to be further protected than it currently is right now. So all that is working to the favor of the commission and their regulations via this project. And you can read through this if you'd like, and we can talk about it more. My overall view on the riverfront standards is this. One, it's a redevelopment project, which is a more strict set of regulations to meet the new development standards. And so if the commission wants the highest level of protection for this stream and the riverfront area, the commission will want to apply the redevelopment standards. The applicant and its team have done that very thing. There's substantial improvements being made to this riverfront area that I think should be applauded, which will supply improvements, not just to the riverfront area, but also the receiving waters, the lake in this particular case. There was some attachments to discuss how wet basins, this is a separate topic now, function. And I think this can be brought back up as Nick wants to, as he presents how wet basins work and their role in the stormwater management system.
Yeah.
So rather than take up more of it, I know this is a busy night. I don't want to take up more of it with the stuff from the previous discussions.
Yeah.
Because we really want to emphasize the stormwater tonight, but that's kind of a recap of the outstanding matters from the prior weeks. And I'm happy to take brief questions on it before we move on to stormwater.
I have a question if I might start. And it's not really about the review that you did here. It's more a question to the commission. And that is, actually, it's a question to you. Are you applying under 10.585 and want to
Yes.
stick with 10.585?
Yes.
Okay, so then I guess my question is, because we have a peer review, do we want to ask the peer reviewer to take a look at both standards and see and do an evaluation under both standards? Or do we want to say this applicant has applied under 10.585 redevelopment, just evaluate it under redevelopment? Because I think we should give our peer reviewers some guidance.
Well, that
As
would
to
be the
which we're
request.
looking
That would be the request of the applicant, is to review it under 5, and I think that's the more strict standard. So I would hope the commission would go along with that approach.
Okay, so we have clearly the applicant's answer, and I guess my question to the commission for the benefit of the peer reviewer is what you want to do here. Do you want to have it looked at for both, or just stick with the one?
I think I just go with your recommendation, Elaine, myself anyways.
Which is to do what?
Whichever
Both
one you said would be more beneficial.
It sounds reasonable to me to call this a redevelopment. Peter. I'm sorry, do you want to, I mean, would the reason to call this not a redevelopment because there's a portion of, because there is a portion of the of that waterway that potentially is not arguably a redevelopment?
No, you can, I think what Rebecca was thinking of was, if you look at it as a redevelopment, is that, well, it rises or falls under redevelopment. And then the question was, is the whole area redevelopment, or is only the impervious area redevelopment, and the area that's not impervious get reviewed under a different standard as new development, all of which is under 10.585. So then the question was, okay, if we can't sort this out under redevelopment, can we make it work under new development, under 10.584? So we asked for an analysis under 10.584. And so if we were going to get into this further, what we would do is we would take a look at what has just been submitted, and we would sort of pick it apart, and we would say, okay, we have all of the reasons the applicant feels that if we don't decide positively under 5, we can decide positively under 4. Do we accept all of his statements? So I think we have a major fork in the road here, where we should decide which one we want to do, or do we want to take a look at both and decide under one or the other? So we could say it fails under 5, but we'll approve it under 4. Or the applicant wants to submit under 5, he rises and falls with 5. And so.
That's what the applicant
since we're
says. Yeah.
hiring a reviewer, I think there should be some clarity for the peer reviewer.
Well, I guess the question for the commission is if we find it satisfactory under 5, but unsatisfactory under 4, are we going to regret not having, that position? That's the issue for us, is it not? I mean, that's the issue. That is the opposite issue for the applicant.
Yes, you could say, it fails under 5, but gee, we really should have
I
approved it.
guess my question is if we find it
Does it qualify
satisfactory.
under 4?
Okay, right.
So do you want the peer reviewer to look at it on both?
I mean, it's the same set of facts, to be honest, so.
Same set of facts, but different standards.
Well, what would the peer reviewer recommend?
Well, the peer reviewer could say, it fails under 5, but it works under 4. Or the peer reviewer could say it fails under 4, but works under 5. Or do you want to just accept what the applicant says and it rises and falls with 5 because that's what the applicant wants?
I guess this is Scott speaking. If I could, I guess I'm struggling to understand what upside there is to having the 4 new development discussion at all, if 5 being the higher standard is being submitted under. We're asking for a higher level of review under 5, which is an improvement to existing conditions. Whereas 4, there's no standard for an improvement of existing conditions. You're allowed to alter the conditions and, impact up to a certain amount of percentage and, in a sense, make the site, quote unquote, worse than existing conditions, from a riverfront perspective. So 5 is the higher standard, which is what we're applying for and requesting review under. It's also the simpler review because the standards are very clear and straightforward, I think, from a peer review perspective. It makes a whole lot of sense in my mind.
Well, that's an interesting question. Wouldn't you think that we would just review it based on what the applicant wants as far as, whether it's 5 or not? I mean, you
The
must
only
feel
reason-
you
the
must
only
feel
reason-
comfortable that it's
Yeah.
gonna, you must
Right.
feel comfortable enough that it's gonna be fine, that you're gonna pass, right?
If there ever was a redevelopment project, this is it.
Yeah.
There's nothing, the most natural thing in this riverfront area is lawn.
Wow. I don't know. Can we table this for right now? Think about it. Or not?
Well, if you wanted to table it to the next meeting, what I would do is I would call the peer reviewer,
Yeah.
say, hold this supplementary information and don't and hold it until we make this decision one way or the other, rather than have the peer reviewer put in a lot of time under 4 for the commission to say, we should just accept what the applicants want, which is to review under 5.
Right.
It's really a question of where you want to spend the money and the time with the peer reviewer.
Wouldn't this question only become relevant if there was some issue that arose that was unreconcilable under 5?
Yes, I think so.
So would it make sense to go down that path initially and then revisit this question if and only if there becomes an impassable problem?
You know, that's kind of how we got into this in the beginning. So that makes a lot of sense to me, at least. So we would tell the peer reviewer to just hold off. And if we can't reconcile it under 5, then let's take a look at it later on under 4. If we find that we really get bogged down in 5.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that sounds like a reasonable approach.
Okay.
Wait, so
All
wait, a
right.
minute. So wait a minute. What are we doing then?
We're going to hold off on 4
Right.
unless we can't make 5 work. If we can't make 5 work, then we go back and see if we can make 4 work. And at that point, we say to the peer reviewer, look at the submission 4 and see how that works. So I would tell the peer reviewer, just hold on to that information you just received and just go forward with 5 until we tell you otherwise.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
Aren't we waiting for information from peer review anyways?
Yes, we are, but we just gave the peer reviewer a lot more information to review.
I know, but I think it's something that we need to get an opinion on. Either way.
Well, right now, the peer reviewer is looking at it with the exception of the new information, which was submitted about a week ago. We're looking at everything under 5 and asking the peer reviewer to do the review under 5.
All right, I guess that's probably makes sense.
Okay.
Has the peer reviewer been cut? Sorry, has the peer reviewer been cut loose to start their review?
We gave them the go ahead.
Okay, so they're currently moving that forward.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear everything you said.
I was just asking that they are currently moving forward. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would it make sense to move on to having Nick present the stormwater analysis?
I'd be interested in learning about wet basins and all that. I find it interesting.
Sure. I'll share my screen. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So I'll just briefly go over the existing condition. I know we've kind of talked about this to the full extent in past hearings, but we've got the 100-foot riverfront shown in dark purple, the 200 in the light purple color here. We have the bordering vegetated wetlands in green surrounding the entirety of the property. And then we have the floodplain shown in this orange yellow line. And I'm sure as you've been to the site during any sort of rainstorm, you've seen ponding water within the parkway and sometimes up into the surface lots. And that coincides pretty closely with where that floodplain exists. So moving on to the proposed improvements. Given the current condition of the site and the resource area restrictions, the proposed design had many challenges to overcome. We began by first setting 4 primary goals. The first and arguably most important was to improve the quality of stormwater entering the lake. This was achieved by capturing the majority of the total suspended solids, including large floatables, petroleum-based contaminants, and sediment. It also requires a substantial reduction in the total nutrient load leaving the site. Nutrient loads for this exercise were focused primarily on nitrogen and phosphorus, and reductions are quantified based on the capacity of each of the stormwater management system components to hold a certain volume of stormwater on site. Once we accounted for the quality of stormwater leaving the site, which became the driving factor in our design, the remaining goals fell into place, which include reducing the frequency and severity of on-site flooding, groundwater recharge, and peak rate attenuation. Lake Quannapowitt has fell victim to years of untreated point source pollution through stormwater discharges all around the lake, which have ultimately rendered the lake unswimmable. To combat this issue, the Clean Lake Committee was established. One of the primary goals set forth by the committee is nutrient load reduction. The committee has identified approximately 24 properties or watersheds around the lake which discharge large volumes of untreated stormwater into the lake. 200 Quannapowitt Parkway is on that list. Therefore, the town engineer, who's also the chair of the committee, has recommended an 80% or above annual reduction in nutrient loads leaving our development. So we began by first identifying the existing loads generated from the current use of the property. We calculated this to be 176 pounds per year. From there, we worked our way backwards, sizing the stormwater management system components to capture and treat the required volume of runoff on site. The proposed design will reduce the nutrient load down to 34 pounds per year, which is a reduction of 142 pounds per year or 80%. And as I just mentioned, this was the driving factor in the design. The stormwater management system exceeds all other performance standards outlined in the stormwater handbook. So these are the top 3 standards that we're required to meet. Standard number 2 requires a project to provide peak rate attenuation for all stormwater flows leaving the site. The project will reduce flows off-site by 79% during a 2-year storm, 51% during a 10-year storm, and 28% during the 100-year storm. The volume of runoff discharging from the site will also see a reduction, 46% during a 2-year storm, 26% during the 10, and 15% during the 100. Standard number 3 requires a project to approximate the annual recharge from pre-development conditions. The standard has been met by introducing an additional 1 acre of green space on the property and infiltrating 34,000 cubic feet of stormwater on site. That's 3.4 times the amount required by the handbook. So a significant improvement over the existing condition. Standard number 4 requires a project to remove 80% of the average annual post-construction load of total suspended solids. This is measured by the quality, the water quality volume provided on site. The stormwater management system that we designed has been sized to capture 55,000 cubic feet of stormwater, which is almost 2 times the amount required by the handbook. Now, the handbook also outlines a number of best management practices, or BMPs, that can be used to meet these standards. A stormwater management system is really just a combination of BMPs designed to work in harmony with one another to improve the quality and quantity of stormwater leaving the site. The following BMPs are being proposed under the new development. First, we have here is a rain garden or bioretention area. And these are essentially shallow depressions filled with sandy soil, topped with a thick layer of mulch and planted with dense native vegetation. Runoff is directed into the cell via pipes or sheet flow across the surface. Runoff then percolates through the soil media like a filter and eventually infiltrates into the groundwater. Our rain gardens will be equipped with overflow inlets and under drains to convey larger storms to the underground chambers. Underground chambers proposed for this project are manufactured by ADS StormTech. These are plastic, open bottom, corrugated arch chambers. The chambers are connected in series and configured in rows surrounded by crushed stone on all sides. The void space within the chamber walls allows stormwater to back up inside the system and slowly be released through an outlet control structure and or infiltrated into the groundwater. Next, we have infiltration basins. The basins proposed are very similar to the rain gardens in that they are above ground areas used to hold and infiltrate stormwater, but do not include a thick layer of mulch or dense vegetation such as trees or shrubs. The infiltration basins are also not equipped with under drains. The larger size of these basins allows them to hold a greater volume of water than your typical rain garden. Runoff will be piped to each of these basins with emergency overflows to mitigate the larger storms. Then we have these vegetative filter strips, and as we'll see in a second, these are proposed at all of the existing paved drainage swales along the edge of the perimeter parkway. These filter strips are equipped with a stone diaphragm that acts as a level spreader, slowing down surface runoff from the parkway and distributing it evenly over a large surface area and into the wet basins. The wet basins proposed are intentionally constructed within the floodplain and the groundwater. These BMPs use a permanent pool of water as the primary mechanism to treat stormwater. The pool allows sediment to settle and remove soluble pollutants. Each wet basin is planted with wetland seed mix and equipped with an additional dry storage capacity to control peak discharge rates during larger storms. And during these large storms, the basins will overflow into the bordering wetlands and the existing drainage swales as they do today. So this is a color rendering of the proposed condition of the site. You can see we've highlighted each of the BMPs that I just went over. We have these bioretention rain gardens. There's one in this courtyard here where my cursor is. And there's a second one to the right in the smaller courtyard. Those bioretention areas are designed to handle a portion of the roof runoff from building 3 and infiltrate a lot of that into the groundwater. As during large storm events, those basins will fill up and they overflow and discharge underground into the chambered systems, which are located underneath the surface paved parking lots. We have a larger system to the left of building 3 that also handles a portion of the runoff from the roof of building 3. We have a long rectangular sliver of chambers running through the neighborhood driveway, and a second long rectangular section to the right of building 3. Now, these chambered systems capture and treat all of the runoff from the surface lots, the surface parking areas that we have here, and the internal driveways. And again, they also handle a portion of the runoff, roof runoff from building 3, and infiltrate all of that into the ground during large storm events. Those systems will begin to overflow, and we've designed emergency overflows into these wet swales behind building 3 here on the interior side of the parkway. There's a second one at the corner here where my cursor is, and a third one up in the northwest corner of building 3. These infiltration basins along the backs of building 1 and 2 between on our property, but closer to the lake. Those handle all the roof runoff from buildings 1 and 2, as well as a portion of the runoff from building 3. It's piped underground and discharges into these infiltration surface basins. Now, again, under large storm events, whatever water isn't able to be infiltrated, and as these build up, it'll overflow to the existing swale that exists within the lawn area here. And that leads to 3 8-inch HDPE pipes that exist today. They pass below the existing walking trail right where my cursor is and discharge directly into the lake. So that covers all of the runoff from, call it the developed area of this site, internal to the parkway, including the buildings. But the parkway itself is at a much lower elevation, and it's much more challenging to capture and treat the runoff from within that paved area. So what we've done is we've utilized a lot of the existing discharge points around the parkway and located these vegetative filter strips that I discussed that eventually lead into the wet basins. So there's 2 forms of treatment here. As the runoff sheet flows off of the parkway into the vegetative filter strip, it's intercepted by the stone diaphragm along the edge of the parkway that captures a lot of the initial sediment concentrations, as well as acts as like a level spreader to slowly dissipate that stormwater into the wet basin itself. And once it gets to the wet basin, we anticipate around 6 inches, no more than around 6 inches of ponding water sitting in these basins at all times. And again, that's intentional. They are called wet basins, and they are located within the seasonal high water table and within the floodplain. So as the sediment enters in that ponding area, it has time to settle out. And as the storms increase, that area fills up and eventually overflows into the existing wetlands or swale along the back of the property. And you can see, I think this was the big basin in question at the corner. And we have these other basins shown here in purple around the back and around the side, closer to the larger wetland. And again, this is all just handling runoff from the parkway itself. So lastly, and then I'll just open it up to questions. I'll go over the floodplain and compensatory flood storage. So the limits of our analysis range from elevation 80, where no disturbance is proposed, up to the 100-year floodplain at elevation 83. Between these elevations, there's an existing floodplain volume of approximately 127,000 cubic feet, with an increase to 163,000 cubic feet under proposed conditions. This results in an overall increased flood storage capacity of approximately 36,000 cubic feet. I'm sure you're wondering why, how, where this is happening. And the answer to all these questions stems from the driving factor, again, in the overall design, which was to increase the quality of stormwater entering the lake by reducing the nutrient load leaving the site. So within the parkway, which encompasses the majority of the floodplain, this was achieved by incorporating wet basins that I just showed you between the wetlands and the edge of pavement. Coincidentally, these wet basins also provide additional flood storage. So that's where all that excess flood storage is coming from. It's from these wet basins that were designed and sized to reduce the nutrient loads going into the wetlands and eventually the lake. So these following exhibits will show the existing flood storage, where it's being stored, and then again where it's proposed. So the next 3 slides are existing. This is elevation 81. You can see it's just to the left of our site within that stream that we've discussed. This is elevation 82. Now between elevation 81 and 82, there's about 33,000 cubic feet of storage. This is elevation 83. Again, this is just the existing condition, and that's the 100-year floodplain. Between elevation 82 and 83, there's about 94,000 cubic feet of storage, totaling, again, 127,000 cubic feet of storage overall. Going into proposed, our 81 contour, you can see it's now occupying some of these wet basin areas where you're getting a little bit more storage from. This is the 82, occupying even more, if not all, of these wet basins. And between elevation 81 and 82, we're at 54,000 cubic feet. And then once you get to 83, it encompasses all of the wet basins and then portions of the parkway as it exists today. And from 82 to 83, we're at 109,000 cubic feet, totaling 163,000 cubic feet of storage. So I think that's our stormwater management system in a nutshell. I'm sure you have questions, and happy to answer.
Where does the roof runoff go right now on the existing building?
So the existing building, all the roof runoff, well, I should say the majority of the roof runoff, there's scuppers on the roof, and it flows off just right off the roof and down to the ground, and then into the parkway and into those paved swales. There is a small portion, I believe, based on the information that we have, it looks like there's a small portion of the roof that actually gets piped underground. I found the pipe, I have pictures of it that discharge into the swale at the back of the property.
Okay. Would you be requiring a sprinkler system for this, where you're using all these wet basins and stuff?
A sprinkler system like outside or
Yeah,
within the building?
no, outside.
Yeah, there'll be, the landscaped areas will be sprinklered.
Okay, and how are you gonna get the water for the sprinklers? Through the town, or are you thinking wells?
The town, I believe it's through the town. We don't design the sprinkler systems for the landscape, but I assume it would be through the town.
It would be through the town.
What do you
sorry,
consider
go
a
ahead.
large storm event?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
What do you consider a large storm event?
I would say the threshold would be like a 2-year storm event, like 3 inches of rain. It's typically when we start, where we start our analysis.
It's like first flush. Okay,
What percentage of the roof runoff is being infiltrated? Under the new design?
All of it.
Okay,
All of the roof runoff from the proposed development goes into one of these infiltration BMPs.
okay.
have you done these systems before?
Yes, yep.
Do you have someone that would be able to talk to us about how well they're working on other projects?
Sure. And specifically, is there any one in particular?
I'd like to see some cross sections of these things and you know, from your, not like the sketch you did, but if you had real cross sections wherever these things are, so we know exactly how these things are going to get formed. I'm just curious as to how the whole thing that you're doing. I know they're supposed to be very beneficial.
Sure, we can provide cross sections.
And like, if you can give us some names of someone we can call that's managing a property or the right person, whoever that would be, that would know about this system and how well it's working for them.
Now, which system? Because there's a lot of systems on here. There's the bioretention.
Well, the wet basins and the infiltration, all of it really. The rain garden, they sound like unique ideas. I just wondered how well they work.
Sure. I mean, the town has actually installed a rain garden right off the parkway. It was designed by.
That's not a successful in that one. That's not a good choice.
Well, I mean, it was, I don't know. I can look into that. I can try to find some names.
Yeah, maybe we can take a look at some of them.
Do you know how long these basins will last too?
The
Do
wet
you know how long these
basins,
basins will last?
how long they will last?
Yeah.
As long as they're
That's good.
maintained, they'll last as long as the whole development.
And there's a plan to
Yep.
maintain them?
Yep, there's an O&M plan and a long-term pollution prevention plan included in our drainage report.
So how do you make, you're saying you take out 176 pounds of phosphorus and nitrogen?
Yes, let me go to that slide.
How do you measure that?
So it's based
How do
on
you know that you've done that?
So first you need to figure out the existing load. And that's based on the current use of the property, commercial, industrial. And they assign a certain pounds per acre per year of phosphorus and nitrogen for that type of use based on the square footage. And so once you know the existing load that's on site, we kind of work in reverse. We know how much area we need to account for to design the volume of these systems. And at the end of the day, once you have a system sized, you can calculate the proposed load by the new use, which would be multifamily. There's a slightly different phosphorus and nitrogen load for that type of use.
Mhm.
And then you apply a reduction factor based on the size of the BMP that's being implemented for whatever area you're analyzing.
So, and this is soluble phosphorus and nitrogen, right? I mean, it's in the water. It's
That's
dissolved in
correct.
the water. Okay. So anyone else have questions?
No, not right now.
I think we're,
And I know there's a lot here. It's a
yeah.
pretty complex system just because of the nature of the site.
Now you're
We-
picking up this this storage is there like shelves inside these things that, so it steps down every foot, or how, or do you figure the slope so that you're getting that storage volume? I mean, how do you, is that in the shape of the, is that in the shape of the wet basin that you're getting the storage volume? Because you got to remove material to do that.
Yep. So I'll just zoom on this one for an example. So you're up at like 82.25 elevation wise within this
Yeah.
parkway.
Yeah,
That slopes down to the 82 contour here, going into the vegetated filter strip,
yeah,
goes down to 81, and then the bottom of the basin sits at elevation 80. So, and
Right.
there's an emergency spillway here at 81.50. So whatever water comes into this wet basin
yeah,
isn't going to leave that wet basin unless it goes into the ground or
yeah,
unless the basin fills up to elevation 81.5. So the volume, the water quality volume that we're calculating, and similarly the recharge volume, it's whatever volume is below this 81.5 elevation.
that's
And the
below.
same goes,
What if the water level is above 81.5?
that's discarded.
Yes. that
It's
would have to be-
discarded. Yep, so in our HydroCAD model, we actually have these ponds sized and we can set an elevation. And in this case, it would be 81.5. And you run the model and it tells you the volume of water within this basin below that elevation. And that's the volume that we take into account when we're looking at the water quality volume or the infiltration volume, the recharge volume.
Right.
And the same goes for any of these systems, like these chambered systems. We have the top of the stone, well, the bottom of the stone's at 83, top of the stone's 2.5 feet higher than that. But there's an overflow here at 84.36. So if my chamber is at 83.50, it can build up about almost a foot of water in these chambers before it starts to overflow and leave the system. So everything below.
What storm event would that represent?
I'd have to look at the HydroCAD sheets. It's about the 2-year storm.
Yeah.
It's not really an exact storm because during the 2-year storm, you might have just a little bit more than what this can hold. So you might discharge some, but it's somewhere right around the 2-year.
Mm-hmm. So there will be times where there could be as much as a 1/2 foot of water in these wet basins.
Yes, so the wet basins, we established the seasonal high water table at elevation 81. We did a number of test pits out here, and I know you wanted to see these on the plans. They actually are on the plans. They're just shaded back, so I can understand why they were missed. Like there's a test pit here. They established it at 77 at this location, but I think they conducted at least 6, 7, maybe 8, maybe even more test pits out here, and they were witnessed by the town engineer.
Yeah, I saw that in the report. It said that.
So this is the test pit he wanted us to hold. And it established the seasonal high water table at elevation 81.
Yeah,
And I think we both agreed that that's a pretty conservative water table, because a lot of these came in well below that, somewhere in the high 70s, 80.
yeah. What is the water level in the lake?
I believe it's around elevation 79,
Yeah.
but it varies because it's dam controlled. So
Yeah, it does vary, but I mean, he put stop logs in that you could probably figure out what the maximum could be before it started to overflow.
well, I can tell you that. I mean, they're at the bank right here. You're at elevation 82. So it'd have to get, it's never gonna get above like 83 even. And the whole site is at least 84 up here. But I think to answer your original question about the water table and how much water is in these ponds, the bottom of this basin is at elevation 80. So if the water table, seasonal high water table is at elevation 81, I'd anticipate it to sit somewhere around 80 a decent amount of the time. And if it sits at 80.5, then you got 6 inches of water in there.
Okay, so now the water table on the property is still about even with the lake, correct? I mean, what can we assume that whatever the elevation of water is, if the lake is at 79, then the groundwater in your area is going to be at 79 as well?
Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption.
Okay, so so you could have as much as a foot of water sitting in the bottom of these things 24 hours a day. Based on what
Well, you said if the lake was at 79,
yeah, if the lake, I'm assuming the lake is at 79.
that's below the bottom of the basin. So there would be, I guess by your
Oh, you
theory, there
have-
would be no water in
I'm
this.
sorry, I'm sorry. What I meant to say was that you would have to fill it up to that point to even break the surface, right? You even see water in the bottom of this, you'd have to be.
Groundwater would have to be above 80.
Actually, it probably doesn't matter. How much,
The groundwater would have to be above 80, that's correct.
right, I
And-
get that.
And it's not, it doesn't correlate perfectly with the lake. I mean, if you dig a hole in here, you're probably gonna encounter water.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I need to look at that some more. I do think it's an interesting way you did this.
And I'll just for the record, I mean, I know I'm sure you're aware, we've been in front of the ZBA for a few months now. And as part of that process, we've been working very closely with the town engineer. He's peer reviewed this multiple times. We've gone through a couple peer review memos back and forth, got on a bunch of Zoom calls together and discussed a lot of these BMPs that we're proposing and how they're situated on the site.
Yeah.
So he's really vetted it out a lot. And I think he would back that up if you reached out to him.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is the first attempt. We've gone through a bunch of iterations of this design. And what I think what we have right now is a pretty
For
good.
instance, off the top of your head, what would be some of the major points that you changed because of your discussions with the town engineer?
So the biggest thing are these wet basins. So we went in on initially, let me go back to this plan. It's a little bit easier to see. We went in initially with the chambered systems pretty much where they are within the site and the parking lot, bioretentions where they are. And we also included these surface infiltration basins at the back. What we didn't include was the wet basins. And through the process of the peer review by the town engineer, he made it clear that he wanted to see an 80% nutrient load reduction going into the lake. So even with all these systems on site, I still wasn't able to hit the 80% because of all the nutrients that I was missing from the parkway itself.
Okay.
And the parkway is just too low to utilize these BMPs on site. So to combat that, I incorporated these wet basins beyond these vegetated filter strips to capture the runoff from the parkway and provide enough treatment to get the whole site up to 80%.
Mhm.
So
Now,
that was
how
the
do you-
biggest thing that's changed since the
Okay,
beginning.
that sounds like a big one. How do you tell if you're actually, I mean, do you test the water to see, how much phosphorus and nitrogen? How do you know the thing is working?
So that's beyond our scope and really honestly beyond my expertise. But what we use is the worksheets and the tables that are given to us by the EPA.
Yeah.
So the EPA regulates how well these systems can perform, as well as what sort of nutrient loads we can expect based on the different uses of the property. So I suppose a scientist could go out there and test these over the years, and I'm sure the town may even hire somebody to do that for the lake as a whole. But it's really beyond our scope of work.
Okay, I've had it. Anyone else have questions? So is that pretty much what you want to present for tonight?
Yeah, I think so, unless Matt, if you have anything else you want to bring up, but that
Do we
pretty much
ha-
covers
do
all
we
the
have
points.
Do we have these drawings that you're just putting up showing the floodplain elevations? And
Presentation.
Yep, they're included in, they should have been included with the notice of intent filing.
okay,
Actually, I know they were included. I don't know if they were included in the actual report itself or as an attachment.
okay.
I can forward them to you if you need them.
Well, I'll see if I have them, but like I said, I want to understand what's going on. Can you supply us some cross sections? I know you
Yes.
said you would, but I just kind of a reminder. I want to see how the whole, like a slice through it to see how it's actually all put together.
Yep, it's not a problem.
Okay. If there's no other, Bob, what do you want to do?
Well, are there any other questions from the commission? Okay. Are there any questions from the public? I see Dennis Clarity has a question, has his hand raised. Go ahead, Dennis.
How come I can't see Dennis?
Dennis, you're muted right now.
There we go. Now, what I want to do is I want to bring up a picture if I could.
Okay.
Or I'll stop sharing.
Okay. And can you see that?
We see the picture of you with the pyramid behind you.
Oh, no. So
Don't think that's probably the one you're trying to share, though.
no. Is there a share screen or something?
Yeah, at the bottom middle of your screen in Zoom is a share screen option.
Yes.
So if you have selected the image you want to share with us, click on that share screen box.
Okay.
And
Share
then
screen.
and then pick the image that shows up in the window that you want to share with us. You're trying to share an electronic image, correct?
Yes.
So make sure you can see the image yourself.
I see the image, but
And then when you do share screen, a window should pop up. And
okay.
you should see any windows that might be opened where you can select from.
Oh, allow Zoom to share my screen comes up.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Now, allow the app below to share the screen.
Yeah, you can share. You're open to share. So you need to select whatever image shows up in the window So it'll say select a window or application that you want to share. You have to click on that particular window.
Oh, okay.
We'll send Jimmy over for technical support.
Okay.
That ought to be funny. Might make it to the pyramids before I get there.
Okay. Now, it came up on the right. Do you see that, Lake Quantapowhat?
No, we're not seeing the image.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, so let's start this from the beginning. If you don't, I hate to, I know you're all tired, but okay, so I go to share screen.
Correct. A window opens up.
And it says whiteboard and system preferences unknown.
All right, so that means the image that you're trying to share is not opened for you to choose from.
Okay, so what thank you very much. So, okay.
When it's opened properly, you'll see that image available for you to pick from, if that makes sense.
Okay. System preferences.
Is this a photo or what is it?
Yes, it is a photo.
All right, so is the photo opened on your desktop?
Yeah.
Like you can see the photo right now on your computer.
It comes up on, okay. It comes up on my computer, but let me, okay. Now, okay. I hit share screen on the green thing on the bottom.
Correct.
Okay. And it says system preferences. So then I open the file. And then can you see that? Because it came up on my screen.
No, but when you click share screen, a white window should appear. And within that white window will be anything you have open. And then you select that particular item, click on it. And then that will, you choose share at the right-hand corner of that white window to send it to us. So if it's not showing up in the white window.
It is showing up in the white window.
Okay, so now click on the image.
Click on the image.
And then the right-hand corner, there should be a share button. Right-hand corner of the white window.
Right-hand corner of the
white window. Should say share.
Share. It's not working, unfortunately. Well, anyways, I will try to do it without the pictures, but it really doesn't do justice.
And so why don't you explain what it is you have in front of you?
What I have is a map of the old fairgrounds that used to be part of this this development that's going on now. But if you can't see the maps and the pictures, it really is no good.
What year is the map from?
1909.
Is this the same image that Frank Calandra had shared with us last
No, that
meeting?
was 1893.
Okay.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So share screen. A whiteboard comes up.
You click on the image you want to share.
It says allow Zoom to share your screen.
Yeah.
And
You
it
click on
says
the image.
open system preferences. Do I have to?
No, you shouldn't have to do anything there, but are you clicking on the image you want to share? And then do you see a share button in the right corner of the bottom white window?
Yes.
Click on that white share button.
Okay.
If you selected the image, it should appear to us.
All right. Oh, it's so close. I mean, the image comes up. It's in a white box, but
Yeah. And do you see the share button?
yeah,
And
it
you
doesn't
click-
light up.
It doesn't.
Oh, that is so frustrating. I practiced this for weeks.
All right, so why don't you do this? Why don't you email the pictures, to Rebecca and Elaine for the next meeting,
Okay.
and then, we'll have them available.
Did you get the picture? I did a cross, I had a map of the planning, that bridge under Quanapah Parkway, which there's a debate as to whether the water flows under it or not. But I have a cross section of the plans for when it was originally built. Did Elaine give you those copies?
She did.
She did.
All right, hang on, let me just look. What was the date of that? Dennis?
What was the date of the?
That you sent it to Rebecca.
Oh, about 2 weeks ago.
I'm looking through my email now to find it. But the image is one of the ones you sent to her. It's in that email you sent her.
I sent her a couple of emails.
Yeah, okay, hang on. I don't know if anybody else is looking for it at the same time as I am, but. Well, while I'm looking for it, why don't you speak to what it is you'd like to speak about?
Okay, well, what happens is that we've been there for a long time. I mean, my grandfather bought the property in 1926, and at that time, the property was it was all part of the it was all part of the site. And what happens now is that water from the whole neighborhood goes, there's a stream that flows from the whole neighborhood, and it goes under 128. And then it goes into, they have a drainage canal next to 128. But before it gets to that, there's two retention ponds that they want to fill. And I find that concerning because and then the water goes down to along 128 to the what used to be Walker's Brook. Well, it still is called Walker's Brook, but rather than going and flowing into Lake Quantapowhat, there's a blockage under that bridge. So what it does now is it reverses direction and goes into the Saugus River overflow, which is a canal that was built in the 1940s. And those three streams, the John, Ash, and Eaton Street brooks that form that forms Walker's Brook now, all that water flows into the overflow. And that's a canal. It's a man-made canal. And that water is supposed to be going into the lake. And some people even believe that it does flow into the lake, but it doesn't. It's totally blocked under Quantapowhat Parkway. I don't know if you're familiar with Zera, Zeraschi, Zeraschi. He did a wonderful explanation of how the water flows.
Are these the pictures you're referring to, Dennis?
Yeah, that is looking at that stream. That's Walker's Brook looking towards 128.
Okay.
Okay, and what other pictures do you have? That's Walker's Brook looking towards the bridge on Quantapowhat Parkway.
All right, so this is the bridge and this is,
That's Walker's Brook.
okay,
And the other picture you just showed us was looking the other way.
okay.
That's looking towards
Yeah,
the highway.
yeah, I see 128 right there.
Yeah, and you see that culvert right there?
Yes,
That is the water comes under 128 there. It's a 4x6, I believe.
and it's flowing towards us right now.
It's
From 95 towards us.
actually it's supposed to flow towards us, but it's actually flowing upstream. The stream has been redirected because of the blockage under. If you go back to the other slide, the river has been redirected because no water goes under that bridge.
And this is the outfall that Jim was talking about with no water coming into the lake?
Yeah, no, because what has been happening is snow plows, the private plowers, they push snow over into that and debris builds up over time. And plus you have the freezing and thawing of the lake. Whenever the lake freezes, it acts like a bulldozer and it pushes a little bit of dirt up every time and then it melts and then it refreezes, it pushes it more. So every year you get about almost a foot, 6 inches to a foot of debris pushed into that bridge. So the water.
So you're saying, but there's a high point around the bridge area?
Yeah, I took some
Preventing the
pictures,
water.
unfortunately, and I cannot access them.
Yeah.
But do you have any other pictures I sent you?
Yeah, I'm looking now. I have a document about the acts of 1989.
19.
I don't see.
89? Is that 80? No.
1909, sorry, 1909.
19, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a picture associated with that, but hang on.
There were some pictures I sent of that, the construction plan for that bridge.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Yeah.
So is your point, backing up what Jim was saying, that water's not making it from that stream into the lake
That is correct.
because of sediment buildup, I guess?
Yes. It's,
All right, I think I may have found the picture you I did. All right, bear with me for a moment.
could you, can you expand that, blow it up?
I don't think I can because it's a picture of a picture.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, there's nothing further I can do.
okay. Well, here is the old racetrack. Okay. This is where I live, right here, about right here.
Well, we can't see your cursor
Oh, you can't see that either.
because I'm sharing my screen.
But, okay. So,
But I see Lowell Street.
but you see that drainage canal right there? That still,
Yes, I see it
that
there.
still exists, except it has no water in it. So what happens is now is the water from this neighborhood, this whole neighborhood. I mean, if that pipe wasn't there, this neighborhood would totally flood.
Which neighborhood are you referring to?
Where I live on
Track
Harvest
Lane
Road,
and- Yeah,
Track Road, Harvest
Yeah.
Road, that area.
okay.
And there's a pipe that goes underneath the highway. It starts at Track Road and it goes diagonally under the highway. And it empties into, it used to go into that drainage ditch here, which you can't see, but
Right, I mean, I see North Ave, I see Lowell Street, so I can make an assumption roughly where 128 is
you see the,
perpendicular to it.
yeah, and you see, yeah, you see the oval there, that's the old
Yes.
racetrack.
Okay,
And Track Road they built on the old track. So that's why they call it Track Road. There's 2 track roads now. But
okay.
from Track Road, it goes underneath the highway and it tries to go into that old drainage canal. But when they built the highway, they put a drainage ditch along the highway. So it goes down towards North Avenue. And then it's supposed to go into Walker's Brook and go into the lake, but it can't. So it goes back upstream into the drainage canal they built in the 40s. Then it goes back under 128 and it connects with the, just past the outflow, it connects. So it makes a real long, it goes for about a mile before it, instead of, I mean, the ideal thing would be to hook that traditional drainage up with the drainage canal there. But I don't think you can, I mean, this is, you have highway runoff and you have stormwater runoff from the neighborhood going to the same canal. But the canal goes down to the Walker's Brook. I mean, the drainage ditch goes down to Walker's Brook, but it can't go into the lake because there's a dam there.
So where is it going?
It's going back upstream into the Saugus River overflow, which was built in the 1940s.
And where is that located?
It's about, it's a canal and it
Is that the
goes,
one that I was pointing out earlier in the meeting that joins up on the other side of Lowell
yes,
Street? Where-
yes, that is correct. That's right. That's where the water goes. And that Saugus River overflow is only supposed to be an overflow. It's not supposed to have water in it, except at times of floods. But right now, because of this blockage and the fact that the stop planks are missing from the canal, all the water goes through the overflow, whereas it should be going into the lake. And if you,
So you're saying short circuiting and heading northeast parallel somewhat to the lake or parallel to 95, instead of making its way through the stream that's evidently not flowing right now.
that is correct. But yeah, and you know, you have that dam at Lowell Street, which is utterly ridiculous.
When you
I mean,
say dam, you're talking the stop boards at the outflow?
Yes, I mean, you have massive fish kills, fish trying to get up into the lake every spring when the fish run. And I mean, literally thousands of fish are trying to get by those stop planks and they can't.
To get from the Saugus River into the lake?
Yeah, here you see the Saugus River flows into Lake Quantapalo, and here it flows out of Lake. Saugus River flows out of. You see that?
We can't
It
see
says
the,
Bear Creek or Saugus River.
I think you're referring to over here somewhere where my cursor.
Oh,
is.
that's the outflow. I mean,
Correct.
it flows out, but over on the other side of the lake, you have
Right
the
here.
Saugus. Yes, the Saugus River flows into the lake.
Yes, that's the stream that's behind the car dealership and the wetlands back there. Yes.
At Willet Road, and
Yeah.
they built another dam there. So you get a dam here, and a dam there. And it's really not healthy for the lake. I mean, you're stagnating the water.
When you say there's a dam there, I know there's an outflow structure.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a sand trap, but I mean, you have to replace the mesh twice a year, and it has been done for 20 or 30 years.
All right, so you're I guess to summarize, your point is that the water's not coming into the lake through this inlet the way it should.
Correct.
It's not coming in from the area north of the lake, the watershed as it should. It's short circuiting to that Saugus River overflow or whatever channel that is.
Correct.
And then the other point is that the stop boards are also preventing not only fish from coming up, but proper flow out of the lake.
Exactly. And
So-
you could fix the lake
So
easily.
I guess if what I'm hearing you say is there's not much turnover and no water occurring because of this inlet and outlet issue?
Correct. The water in the lake turns over 3 times in 2 years. However, if you just use the Saugus River overflow as it should be used, the water would turn over 22 times a year.
All right,
That's
so
how
you're talking
much-
about, all right, so your point here is really about the water quality of the lake, more so than the project in front of us.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
But the stream is not flowing as part of this project.
well, I live, we've been here for like almost 100 years. And this area, as you can see, used to be all wetland.
Wetlands, yes.
It was an estuary. And
Yep.
the boat that the Mini Maria used to go upstream, and I know it made it as far as the Shell station in Reading, but I don't know if they ever made it as far as Reading Center, which they planned on doing. But,
Yeah, the wetlands would, on the other side of North Ave, we're connected to these wetlands at one point. 95 is sitting right on top of both sides of what was once all, wetland.
Yeah, I mean, when they built 95, that was the most expensive portion of 95 they built, right between Lowell Street and North Ave, because the first time they built it, it just sunk down into the old lake bed,
Yeah.
And then
So,
they rebuilt it again, and finally they put it like a 20-foot berm across the lake bed.
so I mean, a couple things, though. We are predating the Wetlands Protection Act. But yeah, I mean, I get your point that the water's not turning over the way it should because of all these changes that have occurred over time. The applicant has said they're going to check out the issues for the stream and even see if they can check out that short circuiting that we just talked about with that overflow for the Saugus River to see what may be happening there. To
Oh, yeah,
kind of validate what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean,
This is Scott Goddard. I've appreciated this conversation, actually listening to this. I found this very interesting and I look forward to kind of investigating this a little bit further. I'm wondering if the secretary for the commission might be able to email this plan to me, if that'd be okay.
Yeah, we can have that taken care of.
Thank you.
All right, so Dennis, we're gonna kind of move on a bit here. So we're gonna do some investigation. Try to figure out what's going on with the stream feeding the lake, or that's supposed to be feeding the lake, and where that water is going, as you just heard the applicant mention, okay?
good. And thank you for your time. I really appreciate what you people are doing, and I think it's a good idea to consider the environment.
Well, thank you for sharing this information and the history.
All right.
All right, are there any other questions from the public or comments?
Bob, one from me. Just wondering whether there was any consideration by the applicant of pervious pavement for the parking and interior roadways in the development, and whether that would have any incremental value in terms of their water retention activities.
Yeah, I can answer that. So we did look at pervious pavement. The issue with pervious pavement is it becomes clogged pretty easily. And the storage volume within that pervious pavement below the pavement itself, the actual volume that you can store there, really isn't enough to treat the volume of water that we need to hold and treat on the site. So that's why we went with the chambered systems, because they can hold a lot more water. They're a lot more efficient in doing so.
Are there patio areas or anything proposed that do have pervious pavement?
So I can't say for certain, but I believe the landscape architect has incorporated pervious pavers in their hardscapes.
Okay.
And I'm sure he'll go into a detailed discussion about that when we discuss landscape.
Okay, thank you. Good question. Any other questions? All right, so if there are no other questions, we'll be continuing until November 18th. Is there any information right now the commission would be looking for as a result of tonight's presentation?
Mr. Chairman, this is Scott Goddard again. So it's my understanding that our goal from the project team's perspective is that the focus of the next meeting, barring the other, sort of peripheral questions from prior discussions or tonight's, would be to focus on the landscaping proposal. And I think we'll be ready to prepare a presentation for that for the next meeting, if that seems appropriate to you guys.
Anybody have an objection with that or suggestion of something different? Jim?
Just as a quick clarification, I think we'd like to do landscape and photometrics if we could. I know there was some discussion about doing some site lighting.
Okay. Yeah, we did mention, we had a brief talk about lighting plan. And you did say that you were going to incorporate that with the landscaping plan presentation. Elaine, do you have anything?
No, nothing more.
Okay. Any other commissioners or anybody else?
Is there an expected time that BSC is expecting to, get some feedback from them?
I believe she was on vacation. And I think, my understanding is as soon as she gets back, she's gonna get working on it. We can find out for you though, Scott.
Thank you.
Elaine, can you share Dennis's information?
I'll get, I think that went into Rebecca.
Okay, yeah.
I'll either forward it or make sure Rebecca forwards it to Scott.
Okay, great.
Thank you. And barring any further discussion on behalf of the applicant, I'm happy to request a continuation to the next public hearing of November 18th.
Okay, we will put you on the agenda and we'll see you on November 18th.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Elaine, other business.
Okay.
Coolidge Park.
Coolidge Park, okay. So there's a bit of a backstory to Coolidge Park. So Mr. Reska, who lives at 39 Coolidge Park, came to the Conservation Commission some years ago and got an order of conditions for work to be done on his property. Never came in for a certificate of compliance. So a couple of months ago, a complaint came in from a neighbor that he was doing additional work out there. So he not only did not have a permit from the Conservation Commission, he did not have a permit from the building department. So the building department put a cease and desist on it. And the building department was going to take him to court. So we wound up, we being the building inspector and I, wound up talking to Mr. Reska, John Ogren, who had, from Hayes Engineering, who had done the original plan for the notice of intent, and Mr. Reska's attorney. And we were trying to sort out how this situation could best be resolved. So we kind of assumed that if the situation were to go into litigation with the Board of Health, that it would basically come back to the town and the judge would ask the town to find some way to resolve this situation. So we decided that the best way to resolve it was for us to forego litigation and work something out with the building department, the Conservation Commission, and Mr. Reska's attorney. So what we did was we came to what we had hoped would be a viable solution, which would be to ask John Ogren to to go out to the property and to do a current plan of the property, to compare the current plan of the property with the work that had not been permitted with the plan that was approved under the initial order of conditions, and see what was new and what had been permitted. So we would then go back to the original order of conditions, give Mr. Reska a partial certificate of compliance for that work which had already been done, so we could distinguish one from the other. And then once that's done, take the as-built plan and use it as the basis of a new order of conditions to get a permit for the additional work and after the fact filing. Once that work was reviewed and completed, because he's sort of half done with what he's doing, he would get a certificate of compliance for the current work and would go back and get a full certificate of compliance, which would complete the partial for the work that was done previously. So the reason I am asking for a partial certificate this evening is to get a fix on what was permitted before close that out, and then put Mr. Reska in a position where he can file a new notice of intent. And in addition to working with Mr. Reska, who sort of got himself in this position to begin with, Mr. Reska and the Conservation Commission are relying on Mr. Reska's attorney and John Ogren, who we feel might be easier parties to work with, and John Ogren we already know, to complete this task for Mr. Reska. So I'm asking you this evening for a partial certificate of compliance for the order of conditions that was issued at least 10 years ago. So we can then take the next step forward and wrap up this project, file a new notice of intent for what he's done within the last 10 years or so, and bring that up to date and close out the project. So there it is. I hope that makes sense. I know it's a little complicated.
Elaine, are you sure
That's
we
the
didn't go
plan.
through this? Are you sure we didn't go through this once before with this?
We have been to Mr. Reska's property a couple of times with the idea that Mr. Reska would follow through on this, which he has been unable to do. The beauty of this solution is that it deals with, we wind up dealing with John Ogren and Mr. Reska's attorney. And I have spoken with Mr. Reska, and he has given both Hayes Engineering and his attorney the okay to go forward in his behalf.
Okay, I think all you said tonight was everything I thought I had heard once before. It was like deja vu.
You did accept that before we were dealing with Mr. Reska. Now we're dealing with John Ogren and Mr. Reska's attorney. And I think that will make a significant difference.
Okay.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this property, and like Jimmy said, we had a number of issues. Sounds like a reasonable approach. All right, so what we need to do is take a vote to issue a partial certificate of compliance for 39 Coolidge Park.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor. Silvana,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yes.
and I vote in favor to issue the partial certificate of compliance. Elaine, you'll prepare that and drop it off at Jim's house?
Yeah, I'll send it around for signatures.
Okay, great. All right, anything else you want to cover tonight, Elaine? I do see there's a couple of the tree removal requests.
Yeah. Forgive me, I've misplaced the agenda. Is it 38 Holland Street, Holland
Yeah,
Road?
38 Holland Road, yeah, that's one of them, and then 24 Winnet Summit that we
Okay,
talked about
so
last time.
24 Summit, I went out and looked at the property. And the tree is exactly as they describe it. It is very developed on one side and very few, if any, branches on the other side, it's lopsided. They presented a letter from their arborist who recommends resolving the problem by a selective limbing or trimming of the tree branches. And I think the last I remember it was as soon as the letter from the arborist came in, the commission would probably okay the project because then we had a letter from an arborist. And I've gone out and confirmed everything that the arborist is talking about.
Okay.
So Elaine, you're recommending that that we approve the taking down of the tree?
Yeah, no, you don't take it down, you trim it back.
Yeah,
Because
pruning
you're
it.
saving the tree, you're just taking the weight off
I
one
understand.
side.
Okay.
Probably, in my opinion, because it's in a very soft and wet soil on the other side, I think by trimming back the tree, you're more likely to keep the tree from uprooting. And in the long run,
Makes sense.
keep a tree there longer than you would if it kept overgrowing and lopsided. I think it would eventually pull out by the roots.
So can I make a motion that we approve the request?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor. Silvana,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yes.
and I approve it also.
What else?
38 Holland, you have a letter from the arborist
Yes.
and photographs.
Yeah, I'm looking for that one right now. That was today. Yes, I got it.
Yep.
Let me share my screen.
Is the pine tree that he wants to take down?
Hang on, I think there's a plan, a plot plan or something too. Yeah, there was a letter from an arborist here. But let me just see what the body of the letter says. Replanting trees. 2 trees they want to remove. So there's a pine looking type tree, some deciduous tree, and almost looks like can't tell if that's a birch or not. I don't know. All right, the arborist letter. Can you see that? White pine. Has crown weight and leaning towards the house. Maple behind the deck has a strong lean towards the house. Both trees are encroaching on the house and are compromised, considered hazardous, pose a risk to your home, should be removed. Have you seen these trees also, Elaine?
I didn't get a chance to today. Nope.
Okay.
Do we know how close they are to the buffer zone? Or I mean, they're in the buffer zone, I mean, to the, you know, where they are in the buffer zone, relatively speaking.
No, I can find that out though. This just came in. We could, I just didn't get a chance to look at it today. We could roll it over till next week.
I'd like to do that, Elaine, because the number one thing that I care about is your recommendation.
Okay, so you want to know where in the buffer zone and how close to the house?
Yeah, and your overall assessment of the situation. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you know what, it looks like the yard is elevated. There's a wall, a drop off. The trees are behind the drop off. It almost looks like a silt fence in back there. It looks
So why don't we
like
just push it so Elaine can take a better look?
Yeah.
I think,
All right,
I
I'll go out next week.
You're right that there's, I mean, I just think that it's worth just and it is obviously pretty close to the house. You can tell from that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give him a call tomorrow and set something up. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. What else we have, Elaine?
I think that's every item on the agenda.
Okay. Judy, you have anything?
Bob?
What's that?
Oh, I just want to know if I can make the motion.
Hang on. Gotta check with Judy also here. You know, we're 5 minutes past curfew. But Judy, you got anything?
The only thing is, Jimmy recommended having a joint meeting with the planning board about Stark Ave.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. So I talked to the chairman last night, and I asked if he would be interested in having a meeting with conservation. he said, yes, he would be. And it was recommended by town council as well that we should probably get, it wouldn't hurt to be involved with the other boards. So we really just need to set up a date, and I was hoping I could leave it up to Elaine to contact Matt and find out what date they plan on their meeting, or just coordinate the thing so we can all meet on this project. The project that we'll be talking about is Stark Ave. There's a proposal to put 3 houses in there. It looks like a project that would be right up our alley, it involves wetland.
So there's nothing before us yet, Jimmy, so.
No, but it would be coming anyways. And I don't know if you need to ask the applicant as well or not, but I'd let probably the planning board figure that out.
So would they be inviting us to their meeting since it's already being presented to them?
Well, it was presented to them, but I believe the plans had just been modified and they really hadn't got to see the modifications and stuff. So they're really just getting started on it. That was another issue where we're coming in, on us, they've already had one hearing. Maybe they'd have to repeat that hearing. I don't know. But
Or they'd have
otherwise,
to
what?
file, with us, and we would invite the planning board to join us.
Yeah, well, however it works out, best for, whoever can, if we can coordinate with them, fine. If they need to coordinate with us, we'll just do that too. Whatever it takes to get the 2 boards together is basically what I'm thinking. So I was gonna ask Elaine to, just check with the chairman and work out a date and find out, number one, if we have to rehear the first meeting.
Can you ask the applicant when they plan to file their notice of intent? Because they don't really have to repeat the meeting because you just. be
Right, well,
considered
that's what I'm
public.
saying. Wouldn't they have to repeat the meeting?
No.
Even if
You
we.
just be considered, if you don't have a filing in front of you, you'd be considered a member of the public. So if they're going to
Oh.
file a notice of intent shortly, then it will make more sense to hold joint meetings then. Because then it could be relevant issues that you're discussing as well under your filing. If you start talking about it now, it's what you think prospectively could happen without seeing a plan in front of you.
Right,
I think that was Bob's point.
yes. You
You could
said it
discuss
much better.
general terms like the trees, things like that, but
Yeah, you said it much better than I did.
All right, so start over and clarify
oh
that.
my God.
We don't
Once,
have-
why don't
we
you
don't have
find out,
filing in front of us.
right, find out when the applicant is going to file a notice of intent, because that should be filed shortly. They mentioned that at the hearing. And then once it's filed, you can have a joint meeting with them where you can both have a quorum and discuss the issues that you see in front of you
All right,
as part of the notice of intent hearing.
well.
You can
let's
see what the
let-
overlapping issues are.
Okay.
Because
So-
Rebecca already issued comments on areas that would be pertinent to the commission.
So,
I think it's as premature right now to collaborate with them.
That was my
think-
point.
Yes. It is a good idea, and I think it
so why,
would be
so
very,
why do you say that? Because they've already started the hearings.
Right, but we
right,
don't
but
have
they
a
have a plan
filing
in front of
us.
them.
Yeah,
So you can't discuss a project that you don't have yet.
Right.
You
we
can't
would-
come back to the meeting and discuss what you think you should do without having a filing in front of you.
okay, so it's basically got to start over.
Who does? No. They don't have to start over anything. Once you have the NOI, then you can establish a joint meeting, because then you both have a plan in front of you and you can discuss what areas overlap and work on it collaboratively. But until you have that plan, you can discuss things as a member of the audience. If you have concerns about the trees, things like that,
Right.
absolutely you can do that. But it can't be as part of
But what
the
if they're gonna-
commission talking about it.
But what if they're gonna start, what if they've already asked questions about this? How do we? don't we
Right,
have to
that's
ask them to
fine.
go back
But
on
they're
it?
not, then, they're not going to be closing the hearing imminently. So that's why if you ask when the applicant is going to file the notice of intent, and that's the risk that the applicant takes. If they wait till the end to file the notice of intent, then they run the risk of you saying, well, the planning board approved something, but we're not approving it in the same way. And that's the risk they take. I don't think they want to go about it that way, not with the amount of public interest in it. So I think your best course is to ask Matt Lowry if the applicant has a date of when they're going to file with conservation, get that firmed up, and then say, once you have the filing, we'll
Okay, well,
immediately
that's,
set up
that's
a collaborative
something,
meeting.
that's something Elaine or Rebecca can do.
Yes, correct.
Just get that straightened out. So we can do this.
Correct.
And then I can also ask the planning board and the applicant not to close that hearing until they at least open up with us.
Okay. All right. That's it. for me.
All right, Judy, anything else?
Nope.
And Rebecca,
Thank you.
I mean, Rebecca's not here. Elaine, you're all set also.
Yes, I am.
All right, so would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn? Peter,
Motion
made
to
that
adjourn.
motion. Is
I
there a
hereby
second?
make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Ken,
Yes.
Jimmy,
Yeah.
Savannah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and I also vote to adjourn. Good night, everybody. We'll talk to
Night.
you on the
Okay, good night,
18th.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.